And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Why is this so significant? Why is her appointment so significant? The NYPD has a great crime-fighting profile, but it has an image problem. When you look at the department, you don't see youthfulness. You don't see the diversity at the top. You don't see the everyday. You could come on, mommy. You come on up.
All right, attention roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time, and of course, it's your Friday roundtable. And if you thought that Eric Adams wasn't going to be a part of the conversation anymore, well, here you go. Even though Zohran Mamdani is now your mayor of New York City, we still have to talk about history because the history reflects what's going on right now also. And it reflects DEI. DEI has not gone away. What is DEI? We're going to get into that, right? And how does the NYPD infect or is infected by DEI? Okay, so it's important we jump into that. So just a little a little teaser. I'm just going to say thank you to John Schell, who was the former chief of department for the NYPD. Thank you for a recent tweet where it just proves everything that we've been talking about on this network at the Finest Unfiltered. Something we've been speaking about for over 3 years, how the promotion rate is not merit-based. It's based on DEI, which is just strictly on diversity. And we show you actual data. We have data that's actually compiled, broken down to show you that whites and Asians specifically get promoted at a much, much lesser rate. It takes them a longer period of time in the NYPD to get promoted, and the data will show. John, let's jump into it. Marlon, good morning, brother. Friday round table. Thank you to the chat. I see our friends and listeners are here. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's engage. Let's get into this conversation.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us this morning. So we're going to be talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and race-based and gender-based promotions. We're going to be focused on a study from Columbia in 2018 that was presented in the Police Management Institute, also known as PMI. Fair to say that this started way before 2018, and we're going to go into the current demographics of the job. We're going to go into what's being said now. Just a point of note, Jessica Tisch is now the police commissioner. Zohran Mamdani is now the mayor of New York City. So we're going to be talking a lot about Eric Adams. We're going to be talking about a lot about Bill de Blasio's administration. But what has come out of the Mamdani administration very, very recently is all of this equity. Basically, they're not going to sign a contract. They're not going to hire an employee. They're not going to do anything if it doesn't check an equity box. That's what we heard yesterday from the chief equity officer of New York City. So let's go. Are they actually holding up to the standard? Here's Jessica Tisch in one of her first promotion ceremonies when she was talking about what's going to be merit-based. You know, promotions are going to be merit-based going forward. It's not going to be nepotism. It's not going to be a DEI agenda. It's going to be based upon your merit. And that is correct. Unfortunately, when you look at her promotions, they've been just more of the same. A little bit better dressed up, but a lot of the same. So here's Jessica Tisch in one of her first promotion ceremonies.
I want all of you to know that all of today's promotions are what we call merit-based promotions. And this is what everyone in the department can expect to see at each and every promotion ceremony going forward. You are here today for one reason and one reason only. You earned it. But as I'm sure you know, you didn't do it alone. Behind every good cop and every good leader is a family who supports them through all the ups and downs of the job. Many of them are here to witness this ceremony and share in your success. So let's give all of them a round of applause for all the sacrifices. I want all of you to know.
So merit-based. What's up, Marlon? Let's talk about merit-based, baby.
Yeah, morning, guys. Happy Friday. I see everybody's in the chat already. Got a full house over here already. We got a lot to talk about this, and I think the chat's going to be on fire like it was on Monday as well. And I think a lot of people won't be happy with us today. You know, especially if you're from certain fraternal organizations, you're not going to be happy with us. Or if you might be a particular lawyer, you know, who used to be a friend of the network, you know. But that person shall remain nameless for me. But I think again, Tish is putting a much more professional face on a lot of the things that have been going on in the Adams administration, and I think again, I'm referring to DEI and all that nonsense. Okay, and we're gonna get into the data and everything, and I think it's very enlightening, you know, and I think I understand the reason why they're doing it. I mean, it's there, and it was in the study, as John mentioned, and there's another article that came out. I forget what it's city and state, but there's another article which talked about it. Yes, it's from the city, from back in 2019. And when I read that article as well, I thought to myself, this is why they're trying to change. They're trying to have equality of outcomes, you know. And so we got a lot to talk about here on this.
So, in my opinion, when things are explained in too much detail, when they're over-explained, you have to question what is the real agenda. What is the real meaning behind? Behind something. And so I like to reference to Eric Sanders at this point, right? In my opinion, Eric Sanders recently just did an interview with Corey Pegues on Corey Pegues' podcast, which I love Corey, by the way. Shout out to you, brother. And Eric Sanders, in my opinion, I watched it, overly explained DEI. Now, I think it's in most simplest forms, it's exactly this. It's an organization, a workforce of any, just like the NYPD, that appoints people or puts people in certain positions only and strictly to diversify, not based on qualifications. So now what was posed to me is, what if, for instance, rhetorically speaking, myself and Marlon had the same qualifications? We were both had a job interview within the NYPD, and we made the same qualifications to a T. But Marlon got the position because of his color of skin over myself. And the question was posed to me, is that DEI? And I say, no, that's not DEI. Because now we're talking about someone who's qualified, but the reason that he got the job was because of race or creed. That's affirmative action. That's something, to me, that's a completely different conversation. And I believe if you listen to Eric Sanders talk about DEI, he over-explains it. So in very simplest forms, it's exactly that. Someone, just like I said, if someone was in a competition with myself for a position and they have zero qualifications and they get it to diversify the appearance of the NYPD, that's DEI. So DEI, affirmative action, is completely different. What is DEI? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, the NYPD actually has an office, right, dedicated to just that, the NYPD's Office of Equity and Inclusion, right, to ensure these policies are actually supported. And what are these policies? The policies are to promote people and appoint people to positions based on the color of their skin or based on their gender. And these appointees do not meet the qualifications or the standards. The only standard they meet is their appearance to diversify. That is a problem, because especially in the NYPD, we will show you and prove you today that the NYPD is probably one of the most diverse police departments in the entire world, but also just one of the most diverse organizations that you'll ever see. So, John, let's get into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Just real quick on diversity, equity, inclusion, and for your little small comment there, Beauty and the Struggle, about we need a black guy for the episode. Any black guy in the chat right now that wants to come up and join us, let us know. If you could think around it, not get emotional, and have an intelligent conversation, you're more than welcome. So, and that goes for female too. So I don't know what kind of little backhanded comment that was, but absolutely ridiculous. Let's talk about diversity, equity, inclusion though for a second, because you know this comes into the NYPD. This comes to across the nation, and like 2013, this push starts happening, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's almost an insane fevered pitch. And it remains that today. The same way that Hitler was trying to purify Germany with blonde hair and blue eyes is the same way all of the left is trying to diversify nearly every single thing in our lives. And what they're telling you is ultimate diversity is that things need to match exactly. Let's say, for example, there's 30% white people in New York City. New York City is comprised of 30% white people, right? Then only the NYPD should only have 30% white police officers because, we need it. It's the most important thing that those people look like you, right? That's what we're being told over and over and over again, that we have to maintain standards. And in order to make things fair, in order to make things equitable, the ends justify the means. Whatever laws we have to break, whatever discrimination we have to use, we're going to do that to make sure equity is reached across the board. That's what that is. We're going to get onto all of those statistics and everything. But let's just go on to this 2018 study as it relates to NYPD promotions. And I think what you're going to see is that everything that was labeled out as a problem in 2018, today, in 2025, remains a problem and will continue to be a problem. So here's a little thing we put together. Is the NYPD's discretionary promotion process discriminatory? The source, again, like I said, is the Columbia School of Business, right? 2018 study that came out from a lawsuit from John Scola, where 4 Asian captains sued, and those Asian captains had said that it was taking them much, much longer to get promoted than other ethnicities. And we know, based upon the FDNY test that was thrown out, where a judge determined that the FDNY test was racist just based on the numbers alone, then if you bring that same decision over onto the NYPD's diversity, equity, inclusion process and their promotion process, then it's safe to say NYPD promotions are discriminatory based on sheer number alone. It's not fair, right? It's not equitable. We're not meeting the DEI standard. So again, this comes out, Columbia Business School. It analyzed the NYPD officer promotion program. It really broke down, though, the difference between captain and deputy inspector. I recently foiled for all of the discretionary promotion ranks, and that would be for second grade, first grade detective, as well as special assignment sergeant, sergeant detective squad, lieutenant special assignment, and lieutenant detective squad. I haven't gotten the results back of those FOIA requests yet, but when I do, I'm going to make them public. And I think you're going to see that there is a clear agenda, race and gender agenda at play here. So it details. In this report, they detailed the absence of clear criteria and objective standards and adherence to merit. So now, while Jessica Tisch saying, well, these promotions are merit-based, there's no formula to prove that, in fact, they are. The things remain exactly the same when it comes to discretionary promotions. They're arbitrary and capricious at best, if not discriminatory. I think by the end of the show, you're going to realize that they're both. And the study also made the case that the promotions were inconsistent, they lacked oversight, and they were anything but merit-based. Marlon, you were promoted to the rank of detective. What are your overall thoughts before we delve further into the study on NYPD discretionary promotions?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. The process is opaque. I mean, the thing is, the detective, there's a slight difference in that. Well, supposedly, in that, they're looking at your arrest record and what you've done as a cop, But I think they're correct that the process is opaque, because you have people who've done about not even a third of what I've done, and they're these guys have gotten multiple grades already, and let alone people who've gotten multiple grades, and we have guys in the squads who've been slaving away for decades, and they haven't received grade, when they should, so the entire process is opaque, and it lacks transparency, and this study, as we'll get into, clearly shows you why it is, or shows you the results of that opaque process.
So I think the discretionary promotion process for the NYPD is so vague and meets absolutely no standard that it allows DEI to be injected into it and easily be masked as something else, right? And I think that's why it's left in that case. So the discretionary promotion process for the NYPD, especially the detective level, is exactly that. It leaves room for nepotism, and it leaves room for DEI, because there's absolutely no standard. If you were to ask someone in the NYPD, especially at the upper level, and we talk about the NYPD management, if you were to ask a chief right now in the NYPD, what do you believe their response would be? If we were to ask, what is the criteria to meet? What are the categories that you have to, what boxes do you have to check in order to be considered for a discretionary promotion? And there's absolutely no standard, right? You could drive a chief and become a first grade detective, or you could be someone in a detective squad busting your ass for years and never get considered. And now with DEI going back to 2018, which is really the pinnacle moment in history for the NYPD, but it's even before that. But 2018 is really the pinnacle moment where I said to myself, you could see not even just the promotion process, but even the recruitment process. And I said it often, I'll still say it. If you're a white alpha male or white alpha female, you're not getting the police department. There is absolutely catering towards DEI, which means that people are getting into positions, especially like detective, because of their color of the skin, their appearance, because they're maybe their gender. Maybe they're a female who happens to also be someone of sexual orientation that is homosexual. So, and we see that often to meet certain criteria of diversity in sexual orientation. How do we know that's true? We use evidence-based information on this network. Why? Because of Tanya Meisenholder. Tanya Meisenholder told you about the 30-30. Tanya Meisenholder has told us how important it is to have sexual orientation as part of diversity. So we're not talking about diversity of qualifications, diversity of traits and characteristics that make someone a good law enforcement professional. What we're talking about is diversity based on appearance, right? So for the NYPD, if you look at this network right now, John, myself, and Marlon, if we were 3 law enforcement officers right now, the NYPD, according to DEI, this would not fit diversity, right? John is a straight male. I'm a straight white male, and Marlon is a straight male, but he's black. But because 2 out of 3 are white alpha males, we would not fit the diversity quota here. So that is a major problem, strictly based on not qualifications, but diversity, and it's mixed into promotions. And I think, Captain, everyone, if you're saying you did not see it, you're lying right now. I see it quite often at CompStat, where people of specific races or genders were not given the same platform as white alpha males and white alpha females that had to represent their commands. Totally different playing field, not the same standards, and no metric of measure. John, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, so let's just define it real quick, right? Racial discrimination, right? There's so let's just so we're clear, you can you can actually discriminate against white people. I just want to get that straight. You can actually discriminate against men. I just want to, if you see here as we break down this title, this is sourced right from the U.S. Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII, directly from the EEOC and the DOJ and federal case law. So there's nothing about the color of your skin. There's no exemptions. You can't positively discriminate against whites or males or Catholics or anybody else. So this is racial discrimination, though. Any policy, practice, or decision that results in disparate treatment, biased, or unequal outcomes based on an individual's race or ethnicity. So when we go back to around 2018, when Bill de Blasio said that he was going to, I'm sorry, that was actually 2021 when Bill de Blasio said that he was going to appoint more people of color to the top of the NYPD. That actually is disparate treatment, and that is creating unequal outcomes, and that is not merit-based. That is actually hiring based upon the color of someone's skin, and that is actually discrimination based upon the color of someone's skin. Different treatment of equally qualified individuals of different races, meaning I want a person to guard my wife's mayoral detail and charge, but the sergeant has to be anybody but a white man. Also a famous Bill de Blasio quote. That is exactly that. That is different treatment of equally qualified individuals. So just because I'm qualified, it doesn't matter. I'm disqualified based upon my race and my gender. Different standards of a criteria applied by race. We see this every day. A discernible pattern of unfair or biased treatment towards a racial group. A lack of legitimate job-related rationale for different outcomes. Disparities that cannot be explained on non-racial grounds. So I think really what they're describing here is, in fact, the NYPD promotional process, but they would have to add in at the top of this, would actually have to be racial and gender discrimination, right? Because and so just so we're aware, racial discrimination is illegal. Victims are entitled to remedies, including damages, and courts consistently view racial inequity as a fundamental violation of civil rights. Now, when we talk about arbitrary and capricious, I say that a lot. I say that when it came to the mandate. I say when it comes to hiring. I say when it comes to transfers. And I say when it comes to promotions. What is arbitrary and capricious? An action is arbitrary and capricious when it is taken without clear standards or objective criteria, without rationale or consistent basis, without explaining why similar situated individuals are treated differently, based on whim, favoritism, or subjective judgment rather than evidence, in a manner that cannot be reasonably justified by facts. A process is arbitrary and capricious when rules are unclear, outcomes are inconsistent, and decision makers cannot explain why one person was treated differently than another. Why does this matter? The courts routinely find actions are invalidable when discretion is unchecked, decisions lack transparency, and outcomes show wide disparities without justification. I mean, when you combine those two together, arbitrary and capricious, and you put racial and gender discrimination in there, that is the basis, the literal basis of NYPD promotions, in my opinion. That's what I hear. When you look at this study, the NYPD said the promotions are based on merit, leadership, ability, and qualifications. But when you read the study, what it really shows is the promotions rely heavily on subjective recommendations and informal discretion, right? So it's basically what they're saying is they don't really know how the NYPD came up with it. They said this, but they have nothing to prove it. The NYPD also said the process for promotion is fair and impartial. But the data shows the process is opaque, inconsistent, and poorly understood by even the people that are overseeing it, right? So what the NYPD also said, qualified candidates are evaluated consistently. What the data actually shows is equally qualified candidates are promoted at vastly different time periods. I wrote speeds here, but it's time periods, right? One, they could be same career track, but one guy gets promoted 2 years into being a captain, another girl gets promoted 8 years later, right? So there's no clear the NYPD says there is a clear executive promotion pathway, right? And they also say time and rank is not determinative, which to me makes absolutely no sense, because they use time and rank for everything. Time and rank for you to be able to transfer, time and rank for you to be able to take tests to get promoted. So that's insane. But they're literally saying that there is a clear executive promotion pathway when you could talk to literally every member of the NYPD, except for the people that are currently in charge and currently overseeing this process. And they are going to tell you there is clearly not an executive promotion pathway. And we have a former NYPD chief of department actually qualifies these statements. So, and the data shows that there is no clear path exists for captains seeking promotion. And that remains true until today, although this was a 2018 study. I think all of these policies, what the NYPD says is what they're currently saying still. But if we update this data, the data is really going to show the reality of what we saw in 2018. Before we go further in the study, what do you guys think about what the NYPD says versus the data?
Yeah, I think Pat Donahue says a good comment in there. He says the department has deliberately and intentionally kept the discretionary promotion process vague and undefined on purpose. And I think he's right. I think I think there's an agenda behind it, and if they were to have a transparent and clear process, then that agenda wouldn't be able to happen. And the agenda is to control the outcomes and to have equality of outcomes. And again, you can't have that. That's we all got out the academy with zero collars and having known nothing about the job, but we all didn't have the same career, So now when when the department is trying to artificially shape the executive ranks of the job, that's a process that's gonna be opaque, because if you were to look through it, and you'd see that, hey, this is there's too much, it's too problematic, and it opens them up for too much scrutiny and lawsuits. And again, I think that's the reason why they've kept the process so unclear.
I think there is no process, right? It's interesting that data says there's a clear pathway for promotions, right? It's not clear. It's actually unclear. And again, I challenge anyone, if you're active or retired in the NYPD, reach out to someone in upper management within the NYPD and ask a very simple question. What is the actual discretionary promotion process? And I guarantee no one knows the actual answer. Now, I think there's two huge key factors in determining who gets promoted to rocket fuel, like Kaz Daughtry, for instance, right? One is nepotism and cronyism, which we often talk about. But the other thing is DEI. And I've seen it myself with my own eyes. We're talking about this data, this basis from 2018. Now, I retired in September of 2022, and I saw it blatant and prevalent. And I actually witnessed commanders, and I witnessed people with ranks above commanders actually speak on this, right? But speak on it in tongues to try to mask it. So everyone was aware of this and playing this game, and yet no one acknowledged it. Another reason why I say every chief on this job has to be removed and eradicated, and because they're all complicit. There's no discrimination or reverse discrimination unless it's allowed. And then that's what's happening in the NYPD, right? So for many people say the job is done, DEI has infected it, and it absolutely has. It's because it's been allowed to be an infection. We're allowing discrimination right in front of our faces. And most commanders and those above the rank of commander actually acknowledge it. So I retired September 2022, and from 2018 to 2022 was very prevalent. In those 4 years, I went to ComStat almost every 4 to 6 weeks working in the South Bronx, and I witnessed different commanders from different precincts in housing, transit, and precincts actually get at the podium and speak. Some of them couldn't get halfway through their own deployment in their own commands, could barely speak on what goes on in their commands, and many of those, unfortunately, had were of color and were females. And it's not because they're black or because they're females and that they were promoted without understanding their commands, is because they were promoted through this process and got to that point that they were running commands with zero qualifications because they filled a role of diversity. Now, there are numerous commanders in the NYPD that are black and that are female that are fantastic. And unfortunately, they were overshadowed by people that had zero qualifications moving through the ranks to discriminate against white alpha male and white alpha male commanders. I saw the comparison in my own eyes, and that was a topic that would come up often, right? Well, we need people that look like the community. Even during the time of former Mayor Bill de Blasio, there actually was an order. If you remember John and Marlon, it came down through the NYPD, and there was an order that former Mayor Bill de Blasio wanted to diversify the department and have the commanders reflect their community. And because there was a low representation of black and female commanders, and this was actually written in document by former Mayor Bill de Blasio, and that has not changed. If anything, it's grown even more, just masked. Jessica Tisch has done a great job of masking things and giving it a different appearance. Again, I tell you, she's the queen of rebrand, but nothing has changed. If anything, it's only getting worse and more of an infection for the NYPD, because at the high ranks of the NYPD, we have more and more people that are not qualified, did not meet the qualifications. And again, those qualifications, we don't know exactly what they are because they're not clear.
Yeah, so the study goes on, and it also says that diversity and equity are considered appropriately, but when you look at the data, it shows that Asian male captains waited the longest despite being eligible. And we'll break down those numbers. I put a post out. I'll show you exactly the time frames for those. It says that feedback is part of the professional development, but the data shows there's no meaningful feedback for promoted or passed over candidates. And that's coming directly from the captains and deputy inspectors. You know, someone had commented yesterday on one of my social medias and said, John, that's not fair. You're not giving the actual breakdown. And so I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. It's every deputy inspector in the NYPD and every captain took part in this survey. So, I mean, how fair could that be? I mean, I don't think it could be any more fair, you know? So just so we're aware. Promotions reflect operational readiness. Some promoted executives never, that's what the NYPD says. The promotions reflect operational readiness, and the system rewards performance. But the data shows that some promoted executives never held key operational commands, meaning people that were commanding officers and had much more responsibility were passed over by people who really didn't have any responsibility whatsoever. And so the data also showed that amongst all of the deputy inspectors and captains, they believed widespread perception of cronyism and favoritism, which it really left out. The study it left out was racial and gender discrimination. I mean, obviously it was a job-related study and they left it out. But I think when we go through the numbers based upon the definitions of arbitrary and capricious, based on the definitions of gender and racial discrimination, and based upon the fact that the NYPD has no answers for any of this, it's clear as day. that there is racial and gender discrimination inside of the promotional NYPD process, as well as cronyism and favoritism. Let's not, I'm not sitting there and saying, oh, just because you're white, you can't get promoted. I'm just saying overall process. When we look at the overall process of it, if you're not close to the king, if you don't know anybody, you are in a system that is racially discriminatory and a system that discriminates against males.
Yeah. I think there's in order to fully understand why the process is opaque, I think that, again, I'm going to refer to this article that I saw. It's back from 2019 in the city. And I think it gives us a lot of background as to why they want the process to remain opaque and as to why they've tried to control the equality of outcomes. There's a specific paragraph in here that talks about it. And it says that racial and ethnic disparities, despite years of efforts to change the face of policing in New York City, and it says they're peppered over in the NYPD's own public accounting of its uniform racial disparity, okay? Lumping together all ranks above sergeant. So basically, what's happened is the department has failed to diversify the upper ranks. Okay, it's failed to happen on the timeline that these that I think largely progressives want. So they've moved now to a system where they're going to artificially change that demographic themselves, and this is why you get an opaque process. Because what we're gonna get to that those numbers that tell you exactly the years it takes to get promoted from captain to deputy inspector, right? I think what that shows us is that they're artificially trying to seed the upper ranks of the job with women and people of color, and it's again, it's problematic if they were to openly tell you what the policy is and to openly explain how it is they go about how exactly they go about moving a captain from captain to discretionary rank, which is deputy inspector. So I think that article, which I'm going to put a link in the chat, has a lot of great insight into what exactly happened.
So when we examine things, what's important is to explain what's the root of the problem and also come up with solutions, right? I think that's what good leadership does, and that's what we try to do on this platform: is identify a problem and also give you what are potential solutions. So Eddie West, shout out to my brother. Eddie West mentioned I have a birthday this month. We need a cigar. Absolutely, brother. We got to get a cigar one of these days. So Eddie West says, John Eric Marlin. So what is the solution? Is there a solution? Will there be such a thing as equal? And how do we measure that? Great question. So what we're saying is in that study, what John just put out, is that the NYPD is trying to tell you that there is a clear promotion process that meets criteria so that there is an equitable distribution of promotion based on qualifications. And the data shows that actually falls flat in its face because there is no clear path. And that's why I said jokingly with some satire is if you ask any upper management chief in the NYPD right now, or even Jessica Tisch herself, what is the promotion process? If you had to write down a bullet step process on what is the path to be promoted from captain to inspector, could anyone here identify what that path is? If I could, even if I asked right now, John and Marlon, could you tell me 10 key points that actually lead to promotion from captain to inspector? Some will tell you have to have a command. That's wrong, because we see numerous promotions within the NYPD where people never commanded a precinct. Hence Richie Taylor. And Richie Taylor's white, but he fits a diversity quota, and he also fits it because of nepotism and his accent. So it's not just diversity, equity, inclusion. John just said it before. It's also about nepotism. And we've seen it. Think about the NYPD right now. If you're active, or maybe you're in another law enforcement agency within America right now in the United States, right? There are other cities also that are fighting DEI, just such as in Chicago. NYPD in New York City is not the only blue city, but we're talking about the NYPD right now. And when you look at it, well, you say to yourself, how come we see some captains that are in the rank of captain for 20 years, and yet someone else can get promoted like Tanya Kinsella by rocket fuel in no time? Now, why is that person, if someone is a captain for 20 years and not getting promoted, you have to ask yourself why. Did that person not even meet the qualifications for captain? Why should anyone be sitting in the same rank for 20 years? Unless you're a police officer that chooses to be there and you don't take any tests or meet any qualifications that we don't know of to get promoted by the ladder of discretionary. So what is the discretionary process? Can anyone here show me the literature? Because there is no literature. And it's done exactly, that's why Pat Donahue asked that question earlier. It's done on purpose. Why? It leaves room for nepotism, leaves room for cronyism, and especially DEI. And what I'm telling you, Eddie West, my brother, we need to have a cigar together. That the solution is very simple, something we often talked about. If you diversify based on qualifications and there is criteria to meet, well, then there will be, organically, there will be a diversity of gender, and there will be a diversity of appearance. Just organic suitability. If we promote people that actually belong in a position because they have those qualifications, and we actually have a list, New York City is so diverse that it will transition and transpose to the NYPD's appearance, which who cares anyway, shouldn't matter, but the NYPD was already diverse. And to me, the DEI infection has actually done reverse osmosis and actually changed it. And now it's not diversity in the NYPD. It's actually more black and brown than it was before. We've discriminated against whites, and it's not reverse discrimination. Discrimination is just that, it's discrimination. And we're actually trying to create this environment where push out straight white alpha males and also females and move into those that are potentially homosexual. It shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter what your sexual orientation is. Shouldn't matter what your appearance is. Should be strictly qualification process. Do you meet these traits, right? Could you run a command? How much experience do you have? How many arrests have you overseen? Did you oversee search warrants? So there should be some specific criteria, but there's not. John, what is the criteria to get promoted from captain to inspector? Do you know?
Kiss the police commissioner's ass. Drive the mayor around. Other than that, I really don't know. And I don't think anybody does. Like, seriously, like, you could be the hardest working captain. You don't know. And so, like, everyone's going to get all butthurt. I see Corey Pegues is butthurt already about the next slide. He's saying that the slide is BS. I don't know how facts are BS. This is what the study showed. I didn't create the study. This is the study. And it was an impartial study, and it wasn't a study about racism or bias. But if we want to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, first we should be able to define it. And until today, I don't believe anyone has properly defined it. You know, what Marlon just showed, the article just showed, is that exactly what they said, that they want the exact representation of every ethnicity and gender, the exact makeup of New York City to match the police department. They want those police department ranks to match that. Okay. So as of now, originally when this whole thing started, this whole diversity, equity, and inclusion push started, I'm like, yo, this is discriminatory. When do we meet this goal? When are we there? What happens when we meet it? How do you maintain it? You know, it should be organic. The makeup of the NYPD should be organic. It should be people that are qualified, that want to do the job, take the job. People that are having problems, maybe they can't afford to take a test. Yeah, absolutely, we should waive the test fee. If there are real disparities in Black or brown communities or white communities or Asian communities or Hispanic communities, then yeah, should you start to promote in those communities? Yeah, and I think we should all be there. But when we sit there and we look at NYPD promotions, everyone should want that promotion process to be transparent. Everyone should want it to be outlined on how there should be discretionary promotions, because the same way that I'm alleging that promotions are discriminatory against males, specifically Asian males, specifically white males, is the same way that when the mayor changes 4 years from now or 8 years from now, it could be discriminatory against Hispanic males. It could be discriminatory against Black males. And when we get into this conversation later, the data is going to show we're at the point in the diversity, equity, inclusion movement in New York City where now it appears it's time to start discriminating against Hispanic males and black males, because that's what the data shows. The data shows that you're overrepresented. So like that, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about underrepresented, overrepresented. We're talking about minorities, not minorities, right? This is what we're talking about. We're talking about making things equitable, fair. I didn't make this. Somebody else made it. So here it is. It takes Asian males 7.2 years to go from captain to deputy inspector. It takes black females 2.9 years to go from captain to deputy inspector. How? Why? Why is it there? NYPD can't answer it. Based upon the decision of a judge on the FDNY test, based upon that decision alone, this is discriminatory. This is discriminatory against Asian males. 6.9 years for a male white. Hispanic females, they don't like you either. Hate to tell you. 5.4 years from captain to deputy inspector. Black males, 3.3 years. Why? Why? Oh, I don't know. I thought we were worried about disparities in not only hiring, but disparities in promotions and clearing those gaps. This looks like a rather large gap. And now, mind you, this was going on. This study covers 15, 16, 17, gets published in 2018. What is the data currently?
Yeah. Man, there's so much to talk about on this. If Corey's upset about this chart, I don't understand why he's not more upset about transparency. If you should want a transparent process so that it's clear why everyone who gets promoted from captain to deputy inspector got promoted. But there's a lot of people who are upset at us talking about DEI, and none of those people are upset that there's no transparency in the process. I mean, could you make it make sense to me? Because I don't, right? You don't have a problem with the process being unfair. You just have a problem with us talking about how the process is unfair, But I'm gonna say that, and I said it before, that like Hispanic males and males in general, yeah, you're next. Okay, you're next. All right, and that chart clearly tells you are. And tell me if you think DEI and all this stuff is we need it to help minorities. Well, how is it working out for Asian males on the job? How's it working out for them? Because it don't look like it is on that chart right there. Okay, so again, you see the DEI and equality of outcome is not gonna ever actually turn out like how it says. It's a nice. It sounds nice on paper. In reality, it doesn't work out, and it doesn't. And this is why, if you have a problem with us talking about it, you should have you really should, because we're calling for transparency and clarity in the process. What you should want is that transparency and clarity, because as you can see, this process most definitely isn't working out for Asian males. Okay.
So the question was posed to me from Housing for Life. How did I pick people to go on my anti-crime team? I don't know if you're just legitimately asking, or are you making an inference that I put just white guys? Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. I worked in PSA 7, which is really mostly predominantly Dominican police officers, for female and male. And I can tell you the process, though, that I picked and selected and handpicked people for anti-crime was through an interview process, right? And with my interview process, what I looked for was work ethic, discipline. I also looked for credibility, reputation, and their potential and their competence. These were key factors that I looked for. Was there an actual template of what should be outlined for anti-crime? No. And maybe there should be. So that's why I came up with my own solution, which was exactly that: work ethic, discipline, competence, your reputation, your credibility, and your potential, right? To transition from dual patrol to doing anti-crime. To me, the most important key factor was always potential. Just potential. You don't have to have the knowledge to do it, but just has the potential. And you could ask anyone. I put white, I put males, females, didn't matter. If they have the qualifications. Actually, one person in particular who I had put in after an interview was someone that people like, you put that guy? And everybody was surprised, and because it was straight through an interview process. And that cop turned out to be one of the best cops in anti-crime at PSA 7 who moved on in his career. God bless him. So straight through an interview process, finding those key factors, right? But are there key factors laid out? No. But there should be. There should be. In every facet. Does it mean you have to follow it to a T? No, but there should be guidelines. And what we identified here, especially in the rank of captain, there are no guidelines, and especially since 2018. And we showed you how prevalent the guidelines are appearance, right? If the job, if right now, if we had, rhetorically speaking, if we had an Asian police commissioner, easily to identify, and the Asian police commissioner, rhetorically speaking, said, hey, we have to make it more diverse. We don't have enough Asians. And the next thing, we have Asians throughout the entire police department. Well, people would say, wait a minute. That looks like we're discriminating against blacks and whites. But how come we're not saying something different right now when 54% of the NYPD is now black and brown? How did we get to that point? Did we do it by qualifications? And we did it in such a short rush time, or we did it just using DEI to diversify the appearance of the NYPD? What's more important, that we diversify by appearance or we diversify by qualifications? And if you diversify by qualifications, you will get an appearance that looks like it's diverse.
100%. Shout out to Cafecito Break, doing a great job out there. Everybody, make sure you go over to follow Cafecito Break, Instagram and X. They, Mondani likes to call them the new media, but I call them the actual media instead of the fake news. So asking questions yesterday, I watched that commission slither around, that commissioner. Gross. But yeah, absolutely. So then, little breaking news here for all of you that feel that you were passed over, you didn't know the reason why, and you felt it was either your gender or your race that you were passed over for. We actually now not only just showed you the data, we showed you the definitions of what determines racial and gender discrimination. We showed you the definition of what's arbitrary and capricious. Now we're going to show you who your star witness is. Your star witness is former Chief of Department John Schell admits publicly, he published this on his own X, that NYPD promotions were based on race and gender. John Schell was the NYPD's Chief of Department. He was the third in command. This is the highest ranking officer in the NYPD to ever admit this. So this is a big admission. The admission's uncategorical. Specific gender and race quotas were required despite better qualified candidates being available. The statement directly undermines the NYPD's merit-based promotion claims, and the most recent ones as well, too, because, again, John Schell was not the Chief of Department in 2018. He was the Chief of Department in 2025. So high-ranking officials gave preferential treatment based on race and gender instead of merit. So here's what John Schell said. He was responding to a tweet from Eric Dim and was talking to Eric Sanders. He said, Mr. Sanders, I don't believe we've ever interacted, but here goes. As a commanding officer since 2007, time and time again, I was called for names for promotion and told it had to be a specific gender and race at the expense of people who outperform them. I was told we need more. It actually cut off the it cut off that it cut off the actual thing. Hold on, let me grab exactly what he said. So, but long and short of it, I mean, here it is, clear as day. This is an admission from one of the highest rank. Here it is. I got it right here. He says, at times, it was not about qualifications. It was to fill quotas from all walks of life. As the Chief of Department, that will be for the book. I always agreed with diversity makes us great. Inclusion, no doubt, but equity has to be earned. I want to add Q for qualified. Thus DEIQ. Curious about your thoughts on all of this. So, I mean, what do you guys think about this admission? Does this open up a floodgate of lawsuits and litigation and allegations? I mean, I think this is like one of the largest things I've ever heard from anyone, actually, hearing that an actual New York City agency discriminated against promotions based upon race and gender.
Yeah, I sure hope it does. For those of you guys who think that DEI is actually a good thing, it's not. It's not. You know what DEI really is, and all this stuff really does is it puts a black and brown face on corporatism and elitism and austerity measures. Okay, the DEI is something that's been cooked up by corporatists and elitists in forums like the World Economic Forum and the Bilderberg Group and all these international globalist organizations. Okay, it was cooked up by them with academics and then slowly filtered down into corporations and into government. Okay, and I've said it numerous times here. I've mentioned the Strategic Initiatives Bureau, the influence that the Police Foundation has on the NYPD, the influence that elites have on city government. This is a policy that is meant to put a nice, empathetic face on policy that really doesn't benefit anyone. Okay, and it especially doesn't benefit the people who are on the lower rungs of the socioeconomic class. Okay, or it puts by putting a black and brown face on it, it's meant for you to be stigmatized by questioning it. Okay, and it's meant for you to for them to be able to call you racist if you question DEI. Okay, and you need to understand that if we follow through on these policies and we let these people reshape society, okay, the top 1% will get even richer and even wealthier, and there'll be even more of a disparity between socioeconomic class because everything will be concentrated at the top. Okay, because ultimately the black and brown face that they put on DEI is just a front man. Okay, it's just a front man. Okay, because they're taking their marching orders from corporations, from elites, from these people who are already wealthy. Okay, so I certainly hope that more lawsuits come out of this, because if you want to save America, okay, and if you want to have a meritorious society, a meritocracy again, okay, where cream rises to the top, and those those who put in the work see the results of their work. If you want that society, you have to push back against this, And I'm saying that specifically because, again, that certain lawyer who shall go nameless from me mentioned Jack Johnson, the boxer. Okay, he mentioned the individual accomplishments of the boxer Jack Johnson. Now, the thing is, he made those accomplishments even with unfair barriers put in front of him. Okay, and yet in that same breath, you mentioned about lowering standards at DEI, how you're basically saying how that's good. So which one is it? If minorities and Black Americans made those accomplishments, even with those barriers in front of them, now you're saying we need to lower the barriers completely? We need to have equality of outcomes for them to succeed? What's going on? Which one is it? Which one is it? Again, this is an elitist policy, and you can't be fooled into thinking just because it has a black and brown face on it that it's going to benefit the black and brown and minorities. It's not. What benefits them is a meritocracy where you put in the work, you see your results.
Well, to me, this is what happens when leaders or former leaders that were appointed to positions that did not meet the qualifications, such as John Shell, in my opinion, talk too much without any discipline. And I believe the reason why he talks too much on Twitter is to find relevance. I believe he's seeking so hard for relevance that he's injecting himself in conversations, and without any discipline or competence, which he lacks, in my opinion, saying things that really put a dark eye not only on the entire police department, but himself. It really stains his career. He projects himself as this crime fighter, and we've talked about his inadequacies and his incompetence, his unprofessionalism, and it shows right here. Or it could be that his conscience is starting to get into him, because he knows that there was damn right, and he admits it, that there was discrimination in the police department as he rose through the ranks because he fit the bill for nepotism, and he had the ear and the trust to Eric Adams, in our opinion, in comparison to other whites that were not getting promoted. So John Shell in his X at 6:45 in the morning, I like to thank him. I woke up in the morning and I saw that X comment, and then we all spoke about it. Said, wow, look, this is going to cost the city millions. He just admitted that this is a practice going on with the NYPD. Keep in mind, he was the chief of the department only a couple months ago. He retired in October. So not much has changed since then. So he admits, while he was the chief of the department, that this was a common practice under his rule, under his leadership, under his tutelage, and under his thumb as the chief of the department in the NYPD, that this practice did occur. So if you are active in the NYPD or you are retired and you, in your opinion, have credible information or a credible case that you were targeted or that you were discriminated against, just as this data shows, if you're a white alpha male or white alpha female and you were discriminated against, well, maybe you should take up a lawsuit also, because John Shell is your biggest witness. John Shell just provided credibility to your case, because John Shell was the chief of the department only a couple months ago. But this is what happens when we have people that rise to the top without any discipline and they talk too much. For us, I do appreciate it. I thank John Shell for always being on X, and I don't know if he's coming off a bender or, at 6:45 in the morning, he's grabbing his coffee, but without discipline, and because he's trying to seek relevance, in my opinion, that is why it leads to him saying things without discipline. So, in my opinion, he didn't say it because it's eating up his conscience, because he cares and he wants to now repent and help others. In my opinion, just lacks discipline. So I've been asking for one white, older male, former chief to come out and talk about the atrocities of the NYPD. I just didn't know it was going to come out in John Shell. So John Shell, I'd like to thank you for admitting and actually supporting myself and John and Marlon as we are in this fight of DEI. John Shell, thank you so much. I appreciate it. John, what do you want to thank John Shell too?
No. Nah. Sorry I couldn't make the event at the Whitestone Republican Club, but I know he was up there for 2 hours.
You couldn't make it?
Nah, I wouldn't even waste my time. I don't need to hear somebody slob over the worst, most corrupt mayor since Boss Tweed and the Tammany Hall corruption. So I don't need to hear the revisionist history of it. I mean, disgraceful on Vicky Palladino and the Whitestone Republican Club. Literal man, they said they were against the mandates. They said they were about supporting workers. They said they were about fighting crime. And I guess they support bullshit crime numbers and they support mandates because, hey, John Shell supports mandates. So, yeah, I'm not thanking John. He's just not so bright, but I would love to have the conversation with Sanders, Corey, and Shell. We could all talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. We could add his qualifications in there, and someone could please explain to me how diversity, equity, inclusion is not discrimination. Explain to me how it's not the definition of racial and gender bias discrimination, which is illegal in this country. Someone needs to explain this to me because I haven't heard it. And I'm not saying it's just discriminatory against whites or blacks. It's discriminatory against whoever is perceived as to be underrepresented. Overrepresented, excuse me. I think clearly the study made the case that the promotions were inconsistent, they lacked oversight, and they were not merit-based, right? And then in conclusion, there was an opaque promotion process. The disparities in selection are wide. The discretion is unchecked. Then you couple that in with what everyone has to say that's went through that rank is they're not merit-based. There's a lot of promotions that were made because of cronyism, nepotism, and favoritism, as well as, and you hear it clear as day, You heard it from the former chief of department. The promotions were discriminatory against your gender and against your race, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, people like, oh, it's always happened. Yeah, I mean, it's always been talked about. But again, I'm gonna say, like, white males in particularly in New York City are the most neutered form of mammals in all of human history. I mean, they don't stand up for themselves. They don't talk about themselves. The only second to Christians in New York City, where they're the most neutered. They don't stand up for their faith. They don't stand up for their religion, and men don't stand up for themselves. Particularly straight white males. They let themselves get trounced on. Oh no, diversity is our strength. Diversity is this. It's like, wait, how does your whole diversity agenda fit in with your kid being able to get a job in the NYPD, rise to the rank of chief in the NYPD? If we're not going on merit, if we're not going on competence, if we're not going on experience, and we're solely going to go on gender, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, that's discrimination, my friends. I mean, and so a lot of people are afraid to say that because they're afraid of the labels that come along with saying that. But I just, we're just not that. Like, we're just not neutered. Sorry.
I just sorry, Marlon, before you go, I just want to say I really look forward to one of the first few big cases that go to trial in civil court. Yeah, call your first witness, John Shell. John Shell, can you please come up? Thank you.
Yeah. I saw a comment there from Nick718. He says, I agree, but how would you get promoted? Nick's also says that he interviewed for Vice and Warrants and was told he wasn't the flavor. Narco said, come on, you're good enough. Yeah, I hear you, Nix. I wanted to get into gang too, but I was told that you needed like a hook and a crane to get into gang, and luckily enough, I got into Intel. But as I said before, I wanted to be a citywide FIO. I wanted to stay as an FIO assistant because I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the way Intel did warrants. I could have gone to Narco because I put in a application, and like 3 days later, Narco called me, and I knew I was going to be a shoo-in because I was already doing that as a FIO assistant, right? But again, and I've also said that I'm not sure going into Intel was great for my career because I like being active, and I think when you get into units ahead of time, it kind of stunts your growth because there's a lot of learning that you could do to get on that journey, But I'm gonna say that's why we need a transparency and clarity in transfers and promotions because there are many other ways we could talk about streamlining the process and bringing that transparency, but you need transparency in the process. Otherwise, you get guys who get transferred to these units when they have about a third of your experience, and you're wondering like, what do I need to do to get into those units? So this is why you shouldn't be upset at us talking about this. You should be upset at the fact that the department refuses to bring that clarity. Also, you should be upset that the structure of the job that needs a lot of work. We need a better development process for the guys on their way to becoming detectives. We need and in order to develop them into great cops. Okay, you get into a precinct. When I got into the precinct, like I said, there was nobody to really train me. I had to I would pick a lot of guys' brains and then talk about this with my partner, talk about what we did wrong and what we need to do, in terms of tactical, our tactical mindset and our tactics in the field. And whereas there are some guys who are lucky enough to have that mentorship when they get it, but it's disjointed, and we need a process for that in order to create well-rounded cops who know what they're doing and know how to conduct stops and know how to be good cops so they can be great detectives as well. We also need that development process for executives too. Okay, because again, the entire process from captain to deputy inspector is opaque. So yeah, there's many issues at play here, but first and foremost, we need clarity on the process, and then we could work our way through the minutia of the process itself.
Shout out to my brother Stephen S., who's always here with us. Awesome friend to the network. Stephen S., I got to call you, by the way. I'm sorry, we've been playing phone tag, but Stephen S. puts here, John Chill, come on down. You're the next contestant on The Color Was Right. Oh, absolutely. That's hilarious. I know. Stephen, I appreciate you always, engaging in the conversation. It's really unfortunate. And I think that when we talk about DEI, we're laughing at that. But when we talk about DEI, it really erodes the entire police department or any agency or any workforce or any organization from inside out. And I think that any form of discrimination just erodes the entire agency, especially the NYPD. Why? Because one, if you're a white alpha male or white alpha female, particularly white alpha males, and you're getting discriminated against, well, that just kills morale, kills camaraderie, rips right through in, and it hurts the qualifications, abilities that we can have in movement throughout the police department, right? Which is important to pass the torch, to teach people that are within the police department, and also to have those management and leadership skills at the top. But what does it also do to people of color and to people of different genders and people that are homosexual, right? If someone is homosexual and they are fantastic at a job and they meet all the qualifications, but then they have to ask themselves, did I get this position because of who I screwed or who I sleep with the night before? And to me, that erodes someone's, self-worth and self-value, and that transitions and transposes to the entire police department. And if you're black and brown, you're saying, wow, look at all the qualifications I got, but I didn't get to that position, but someone else, black and brown, got the positions that didn't have the qualifications. What does that do to the entire agency? And I just think it just erodes at it from the inside out. This is absolutely terrible, right? And it's not, believe me, and I agree with Marlon, this is on a global level. It's not just the NYPD. We see it so prevalent. Go online right now and fill out an application on Indeed. I asked someone, just fill it out. Even if you're active and you're not looking for another job, go on Indeed and fill out a job application. What is going to come up on the last page is a questionnaire. The questionnaire is going to ask you your gender. It's going to ask you your race. It's also going to ask your sexual orientation. This is on Indeed for private organizations. Why does it matter your sexual orientation in performance or a job? Why does it matter your race? Why does it matter your color? Why do these things have any ability to affect your ability to get hired in any agency? So it's not just the NYPD. We see it. This is so prevalent. This is our wheelhouse. This is what we focus on, but it's happening on a global level.
Yeah, on a Western level, I think this is a Western.
Yes,
problem.
yes.
And the reason why I'm saying this is because so earlier I was watching a couple of videos from one of those forums at Columbia University, and I saw O'Neill was talking on it, and I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I again thought about the fact that the executive, there's a lot of executive training that goes on at Columbia. They have these these management schools that are held there. And I kept thinking to myself, why do we as an organization go through academia? I'm talking, the NYPD has like decades of knowledge, experience in knowledge, experience, and leading the country as the largest policing agency in the country, right? Wow. That people should be coming to us. People should be going to the police academy, the NYPD Police Academy, to get these management courses on policing instead of going to academia. This is one of the problems. The problem with the West is that we've the West has leaned so much in academia and moved away from boots on the ground, hands-on experience. Okay, and that has skewed everything. And this is why, like, there's so much impracticality that's permeated the NYPD through academia. Okay, and whereas if you had boots on the ground teaching management schools like this in the police academy, you'd have more realistic, more practical policies, more practical concepts for policing.
So Michael M in the chat, Michael M is weird dude, right? Because he's all over Eric Sandler's post, and he says that we're cherry picking statistics. We're talking about the current mind frame. We're not going into history. And he's saying, well, why don't you bring up what happened in 1990? So, I mean, I don't have the data for 1990, so we really can't talk about it. We're talking about here and now in the present. This isn't a historical podcast. When we do historical podcasts, we'll let you know. We'll keep you informed that this is historical data. But let's just say the premise of what you're saying is that historically, the NYPD discriminated against black and brown people. And let's say that historical data proves that. Does that mean that it's correct to do that today? Is that what you're saying? Should Jewish people put Germans in camps? Should black people enslave white people in the South? Should Africans enslave their African slaveholders? What's your point? We're talking about right now. So what we're doing is we're going through right now and giving you the facts and the data. We're not giving you just some bullshit AI picture and putting our racist tropes all over it like you and a certain attorney like to do. This isn't bullshit. This is actual facts. So again, NYPD, when they instituted their basically form of the Chief Diversity Equity Officer, which is the Deputy Commissioner of Equity Inclusion, this was the form that they put out. They put out this. And if you could see, there's 2 points I want to talk about. It says, they coordinate with the NYPD and external experts on irritative research. Irritative research. Irritative means frequent. I don't even know what this line means. Irritative research and development projects that will facilitate industry leadership in organizational equity, as well as the delivery of equitable service to the residents of New York City. I would love the person who wrote this to explain exactly what equitable service means and equitable leadership. They'll develop a diversity, equity, and inclusion communication strategy that will keep the leadership and team informed about diversity programs and policies. They will ensure that all employment diversity-related efforts on behalf of the department are performed in the spirits of best practices, which results in properly retained in accordance to company and legal standards to demonstrate compliance. So a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo as to what to say is they have a process in place to meet their diversity goals, but that process is shrouded in mystery. I wonder why. I wonder why they don't tell you what their process is, what their strategy is. You know why? Because their process and their strategy is illegal. And it violates Title VII. It violates the Civil Rights Act in 1964. When Bill de Blasio put this memo out saying that he was going to put people in color in leadership positions in the NYPD, what he was saying was, I am going to discriminate against white males. I am going to hire people based upon their race, their gender, and their ethnicity. And then you heard Eric Adams, who we opened up the show, come on here and say that the NYPD has an image problem. It has a diversity problem. It has a youth problem. And you saw Shell and you saw Essex standing there like the two cucks that they are. Because if they had a pair of balls, either of them, they would have walked off that stage and went right down to the pension system and said, I am not going to be put up there. The only thing that I've seen that relates, that's close to that video that we showed of Essex and Shell standing there, because I didn't see diversity in that photo. I only saw them two, like two white unicorns standing out there, standing there while they were being called too male, too pale, and too stale. Well, they were sitting there and they allowed it and they said not a word. The only thing that I relate that to is watching Brian O'Hara, chief of the Minneapolis Police Department, stand next to that little skell, Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, and sit there completely emasculated. Those are the two, like those two, if you take both their faces at both of those times and compare them to Brian O'Hara's, that's the same thing. This is illegal. This is discriminatory, and it's still in play. It's still happening. This is the goal. But when you ask for the data, when you ask for the strategies, when you ask for the policies, there is none. But based upon what we know, based upon the hiring, based upon the time frame in the hiring, based upon John Schell's statement, it's safe to say, and we know who is being discriminated against. Male Asians and male whites. It's clear as day. It's right there. Oh, and female Hispanics as well.
Yeah. Where was that pushback when he was there? You know, did he go to the CEA and push and tell them to push back? And in fact, why aren't all the unions pushing back against this? Because ultimately, it's your membership that are going to be affected when you have people who are being promoted to these upper executive ranks who are underqualified, okay, who aren't equipped for their positions, okay, and your membership are ultimately going to see the brunt. You're going to see the results of that that inefficiency at the top. So I don't understand why the unions don't never say anything about all of this. Okay, I mean, you see the job deteriorating at the top, and what it's okay as long as as long as you're getting your perks, as long as you're getting your sons promoted, it's okay. Even though he has like at least 10 more years of working in a department that's deteriorating. You really want him? You think you're doing him any favor by not saying anything right now? You know, you can retire any day now, but your son can't. Okay.
No, that's right. What is Marlon talking about? What we often talk about here, which is why they don't speak up at the top, active or retired, because they paved the way for their offspring, right, Marlon? That's exactly what they're doing. So Tabitha Foster, great friend to the podcast. You know I love you, girl, and the network. I hope you're still here, because we got to talk about this. We got to talk about this. I got a problem with this. So Tabitha says, I am sorry, but y'all crying about reverse discrimination, alpha white man, and alpha white woman is insane to me. White people have a 400-year start in history with an advantage from slavery. I have a problem with this. First of all, just you calling it reverse discrimination, to me, is discrimination. Like, there is no such thing. So exactly what John said earlier in the episode. John, I think you said that you can't discriminate against whites, and that's what you're saying, Tabitha. If you call it reverse discrimination, you're saying you can't discriminate against whites. Discrimination is discrimination. We can't cut discrimination with discrimination also. That just means there's more discrimination. So, Tabitha, I just don't understand what you're saying here. To me, based on what you wrote here, you're saying that, well, it's okay if some whites get discriminated against because black people went through it. So if some white people are getting discriminated against, well, boo-hoo, because black people got discriminated against. If one person gets discriminated against, that's a problem. And if we just allow this, it will never end. I don't agree with you, Tabitha. If you're saying it's okay, think about what you're saying. If the tides turn eventually, and then white people get back at the top, just as Michael M. wanted to make the reference to 1990, right? If it becomes the Irish mob again at the top, and we discriminate on purpose, if we have a DI movement that everyone has to be white, and we discriminate against blacks, you don't think that can't happen again? So if we don't put a stop to it now, things can turn, and one day we could have where whites are at the top, and now we're discriminating against the blacks, and then now Asians get to the top, and they discriminate. So is it okay because it happened before? That's what you're saying. And this wheel just continues and continues, and the cycle never ends. I got a problem with that. I really got a problem. And she goes on even further, Tabitha. I'm surprised. And she says, white people literally have a legacy history in NYPD. They got over for decades while black people were locked out. This reverse discrimination talk is literally insane to me. It makes no sense. To me, it makes completely sense. It makes all sense. Discrimination should not happen, period. John, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, no, I'm just waiting for my 40 acres and a donkey. So that's what I'm waiting for. My 40 acres of wine fields, Because I don't know. I didn't have a leg up from anybody, so I don't know like what we're talking about when we just box everybody in, white people, black people. But Eric Adams, if you guys remember, he wanted all of employees for New York City, anybody that wanted to apply for a job in New York City, to submit a photo. Why? Because he wanted to check the melanin in your skin. I mean, come on, people. This is discrimination. And if it's okay to discriminate against white males, then in 5 years from now, it's going to be okay to discriminate against you. And that's ultimately what we're saying. I can't argue, like I can't argue nonsensical points. I just can't. I'm not going to talk about nonsense. Like, again, people say that we don't have facts, we don't have this, but they're unwilling to come on here and debate. And that should tell you everything you need to know. That should tell you everything you need to know. This is from 2018. This is from a former NYPD executive. This was given to him by the police department. Ready? Here, let's go. Above the rank of captain, minorities who were promoted to deputy inspector on average were promoted 33.3% sooner than whites promoted to deputy inspector. Females who were promoted to deputy inspector on average were promoted 25% sooner than males promoted to deputy inspector. Minorities who were promoted to inspector on average from the date of respective promoter's promotion to captain or other permanent civil service rank were promoted 20% sooner than whites were promoted to inspector. So that was for just above the rank of captain. So why is that? I mean, clear as day when you look at the data, when you look at the messaging, when you look at all of it. Why? Because this is what they were doing. They were discriminating. Clearly, they were discriminating against male whites. I mean, this isn't hard. This isn't a hard puzzle to solve here, people. Let's go below the rank of captain. Minorities who were promoted to sergeant SDS on average were promoted 22.2% sooner than whites were promoted to SDS. Minorities who were promoted to lieutenant SA on average were promoted 33.3% sooner than whites promoted to lieutenant SA. Females who were promoted to sergeant SDS or lieutenant LSA were promoted on average 25% sooner than males. I mean, this is like the department's telling you this here in this thing when they're handing this out. It's because they're bragging about it. They're not saying like, oh, look how discriminatory we are. Oh, look at the unlawful employment practices we're having. Oh, look at us hiring and promoting people based on race. No, they're like, look how great we're doing at discriminating and pushing minorities ahead, what we perceive to be minorities ahead. Because when you actually look at the data of New York City, the people that are minority are those who you designate white, right? The immigrant Italians, the immigrant Polish, the immigrant whatever. Oh, and you Hispanics too. If you're a white Hispanic, you fall in that category as well, right?
Yeah, that's some interesting info. I didn't even, I actually didn't even know you had the full report there. But that is very curious. Does it mention about detectives too? Grade on detectives? I bet that's a hell of a rabbit hole.
No, this is just this was at like an all-in for captains in 2018.
I see.
This wasn't that. I did, however, I requested this. So I'm waiting for this to come back. And I requested this from both the NYPD and the New York City's Commission of Racial Equity. Because part of their goal in New York City's Commission of Racial Equity is to ensure that city promotions are being done equitably for all. So I want to see. So I titled the FOIA Racial and Gender Composition of Select NYPD Detective and Supervisory Ranks. I said, pursuant to Article 6 of the New York Public Officer Law, Freedom of Information Law, I respectfully request the following records. For uniformed members of service in the New York City Police Department, please provide the overall racial and gender breakdown of members currently assigned to or holding the following ranks: Detective First Grade, Detective Second Grade, Sergeant, Sergeant Special Assignment, Sergeant Detective Squad, Lieutenant Special Assignment, Lieutenant Detective Squad. For each it should have been Lieutenant Commander of the Detective Squad, but whatever. For each of the above categories, please provide the data aggregated race and gender in a table or spreadsheet format if available. I am not requesting the names, tax numbers, or identification numbers, or any personal identifying information. Aggregate statistical data will satisfy the request. So let's see what they come back with. If they do not release this, I'm going to push back. If they do not, I'm going to file an Article 78 because there's absolutely no reason I shouldn't get this data ASAP.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm not gonna pick on you. I'm not picking on you, Tabitha, because you're one of our best viewers, one of our most loyal viewers, who's always there at every show, and we appreciate it, and we also appreciate your pushback too, because the only way we're ever going to solve these problems that affect all of us, okay, and especially the Black community, okay, because I've talked many times before about the problems in the American Black community, right? The only way we're going to solve these problems is if we talk about this openly, okay, and we get past them, okay? But with that said, this whole 400 years of slavery thing is like, you know, at some point we got to get past this, you know? And as I said before, like, why stop at 400 years, you know? I'm going to go back. Can I go back to 6,000 years ago when the Egyptians were dominating Africa, you know, and enslaving my people in West Africa? Can we go back to that? Can I get some reparations from
Let my people
Egypt
go
already? Yeah. Also, can I get something for all my European ancestors who are being pirated by the Berbers 1,000 years ago?
Plenty of Jews were slaved. Plenty.
Or rather, you know, 200 years, 300 years ago. It's like,
how about Sicily? It
stop?
was a slave colony by almost every country that took Sicilian. Like Syria, Africans, like that's why Sicilians all look like they do.
Yeah, it's like, come on, we need to get past this, okay?
That's why I want my donkey and 40 acres, and that's it.
And get a mule too.
No, we have donkeys.
You know,
we don't have mules.
It's like yeah, this whole victimhood mentality is keeping a lot of young people down, okay? Because if you're expecting the world to give you something, okay, you're gonna get passed on because nobody cares, okay? You have to keep on pushing and get past victimhood, and you know that is one of the major problems with the way America is right now. It's too much of this you know, feeling sorry for yourself, victimhood, you know, and we need to. I said before, the point is coming where all that stuff is going to be completely ignored. Nobody's going to care. You're going to talk about 400 years. Nobody's going to care. Okay. Because you have to compete with other countries like China. We don't make anything in this country. Okay. Nobody cares that you're at 400, what your ancestors did. Okay. When your economy is imploding right now. Okay. When everything you need, including medicine in a pandemic, right? So medicine that was supposed to work, but it didn't. We all know that. But the point is that medicine was still produced in China and not in your country. So we need to wake up on that. You know,
Louis Conyer, a name I haven't seen before. How you doing, brother? Louis Conyer in the chat says, "Would you tell a Jew to get over the Holocaust?" So great question. We're not saying to get over it. We're saying to get past it. Marlon's not saying that you should forget history. History is important. I was a history major in college. I graduated with a bachelor's in history. History is very important. History, right? A reflection of the past is a prediction of the future if we don't make changes. And we're saying that you shouldn't forget the fact that blacks were enslaved. But what we're saying is that every ethnicity at some point in history was some form of product in slavery. And we're saying it's wrong. And we're not saying forget history, but you have to move past it in order to have a prosperous life. But saying it's okay because it's okay to discriminate against some whites because blacks were discriminated against is absolutely wrong. It would be inappropriate for me to say, well, you know what? I had family, I have descendants that were lost in the camps in World War II, and it would be okay to have some other form of genocide because Jews were killed. So it's okay to have genocide somewhere. That's absolutely wrong. Yeah. What we're supposed to do is learn from history so it doesn't happen again. As at least for Jews, I think the responsibility is to say, what happened to Jewish people? Make sure that we let people understand what happened so it doesn't happen to another ethnicity. It doesn't happen again. And that's what black people should say and say, hey, what do we do so that this doesn't happen again? And I hope that's what will come from you, Tabitha. We're not picking on you. We love you, by the way, that you're here. But what I'm saying to you is, are you saying it's okay that some whites are discriminated against because blacks? What I hope you would say is, this is what we learned. Our people, our good black people were enslaved. What do we do so it doesn't happen again to blacks or anyone else? That's what I think is the point of history. It's not forgetting it. And I don't think Marlon's saying, hey, just forget about it. You know, acknowledge it, but move past it and do some good. In any form of bad, there should be some good that comes out of it. And that good should be making changes.
I don't know, but I'm freezing. I don't know. It's cold. It is cold here today. That's all I got to say. North Florida is very cold.
Welcome to Florida. Congratulations.
When
you're in Florida, John, when you're in Florida and you see the temperature like 20, 30 degrees, like, what the hell is going on here? I'm shocked here.
I think I'm moving to Africa next, like the southern part of it. So I'm going in right by Ethiopia. I'm getting soft. Florida made me soft. I'm getting old and soft.
You got thin blood?
Thin blood. All right. So look, but nobody wants equality, right? So let's stick with diversity, equity, inclusion. So now it's time to positively discriminate against Black and Hispanic people, is what I'm seeing. So according to NYPD.org, when we look at their data, this chart compares the racial demographics of uniformed members of the service in the rank of police officer, right? So we have this whole diversity, equity, inclusion department. Their whole goal is to make everything equitable, everything inclusive, and to ensure that the people that are policing the streets of New York City actually look like the people of New York City, that their demographics match perfectly. Right? So according to the chart in the NYPD, whites are underrepresented by 12.5%. Hispanics are overrepresented by 18.1%. Blacks are overrepresented by 4.1%. Asians are underrepresented by 8.7%. And Native Americans are underrepresented by 0.05%. So here are my questions. What recruiting efforts are being made to hire more white, Asian, and Native American officers in order for the NYPD to look like the communities they serve, right? What I'm hearing is that we should stop recruiting in Black and brown neighborhoods now and move that over into white, Asian, and now go out and find Native Americans, because again, equity means everything has to be completely equal, right? Has to be completely equitable. And then I also want to know what efforts are being made to bring down the number of overrepresented groups. This is DEI, baby. DEI, baby. We taking this bitch over, right? So now that DEI is here, and now that it looks like whites are the most underrepresented group, what's being done to correct that? When we get these numbers perfect, what will be done to ensure that those numbers remain the same? And the reason that no one will ever answer those questions is because the only way to do that is to discriminate. It's the illegal employment, illegal promotion discrimination. That is the only way to do it. And if that is the only way to do it, that means that the diversity, equity, and inclusion push is illegal and discriminatory in this country. And I don't understand, for people who are well-educated, I'm not one of them. I'm well-read. I think a lot. I'm not well-educated, though. But for people who claim that they're well-educated and have all these fancy degrees, why can't you debate these points? I mean, because what I'm seeing right now, it's, hey, look, you love diversity, equity, inclusion. Okay, How are we bringing down the Hispanic population and the black population in the NYPD now, while at the same time going and helping this underrepresented white population in the NYPD? How are we doing that?
Yeah. How could we fix past perceived discrimination with present, discrimination? The answer to racism isn't more racism now from your side. Okay. It's like, how could we talk about Jack Johnson, right? And talk about the discrimination that he faced, okay? So much so that at one point he left for Europe, like a lot of black entertainers did, a lot of black folks who were, had risen to a certain stature in society. They fled to Europe because Europe was a little more open at the time. So how can you bring up a person like Jack Johnson, right, who faced discrimination, and then say with the same breath that we basically need discrimination now from our side, okay, to make things even? It's like that doesn't pass the logic test, and think of it, the demographics of the city are shifting, okay, and it's shifting more towards Asians, in particular South Asians, okay, and the Muslim community, okay. What if now it's their turn, okay, and they say, okay, you know what, we're in charge now. We've been discriminated. You look at the data here. We've been discriminated against. Now it's our turn. Now what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? Yeah. So the answer to this is transparency and clarity and a well documented process, and also, like I said before, better development in the NYPD.
So this conversation and this data, what it proves is that there is an intentional mission by the NYPD. And when I say the NYPD, the job, that's the upper echelon. It's the management that actually controls. We're talking about personnel. We're talking about OMAP. We're talking about these units in the police department that control the mission of the job. And that means that there is that everyone is on board and aware that in order to diversify the job by appearance, you have to intentionally discriminate against other groups to actually get to this point of diversification, which means, and we're showing you the data here, which means according to the data and according to what they're doing, diversity now means more black and brown. That's what it means. Ultimately, what we told you and what the data shows is you can equate DEI means more black and brown. Because if it means diversity, equity, inclusion, then everyone would be on board and say, oh my God, there should be some chief right now in personnel or an OMAP and saying, we got a huge problem here. We got a huge problem. John, Eric, and Marlon just spoke about the data, and the data doesn't match diversity, equity, inclusion. Well, we have diversity, right? Because we have all ethnicities here. We have inclusion, but we don't have equity. Our Asians and our South Asians and whites are underrepresented. So we have to get this to the point of equity, which means if they wanted to intentionally do that, we would have to now discriminate again. So Tabitha, if you're listening, this is important. To actually get to the point to have more whites and more Asians, we would have to intentionally discriminate against black and brown to get to that point. So we're back to discriminating against black and brown. Right now it's okay because we're discriminating against whites and Asians. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying, Tabitha. I'm just saying. But right now, so we have to have an intentional shift, an intentional motivation, intentional drive. That means that the upper echelon of the job that's running units like personnel and OMAP is failing to do their job. Am I right, Mullen? That means they looked at this and say, wait a minute. No one's looking at this and saying, hey, we got a problem here. The data doesn't match equity. We need to make changes. So according to this data, they're not doing their job. John, what are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, I didn't have my power cord plugged in. I was like, oh,
you trying to get some heat over there? We got the
no. My computer just almost went dead. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I don't support diversity, equity, inclusion because I believe it's racist. Because if you support diversity, equity, inclusion, if you support the movement, what you support now is you support discriminating against Hispanics and blacks in the NYPD. And you support that because now the numbers show that Asians and whites are underrepresented. What I originally been saying, and I've been saying this since this came into fruition in 2013, I've been saying that everything should be organic. Now, if there's large disparities, then we could look at that, but there's not. And when you look at this data currently and how this data has shifted in the last 10 years, it's not an organic shift. It's not an organic shift based upon the makeup of the communities. And if you actually really broke this down, I forget who alluded to this here, but it was a great point. I think it was Jason. If you really, really break this down, if you really look at it, because I always made the case, I'm like, look, I'm not white. I'm not checking the white box. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not white. I'm not treated as if I'm white anywhere. I've never been. I'm looked at as less than, I'm always been looked at different. Like, people don't like Italians, white people don't like Italians. Black people don't like Italians. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. So I'm like, it is what it is. I've been discriminated everywhere I walk in New York City, including when I go to any fancy foo dinners or anything like that. I've been to a couple of events and like, I love it. People are like, oh, what do you do? Construction? I'm like, what? And it's, no, I don't do construction. Like, why would you assume that just based upon the way I look? Oh, what are you in karting? Like joke. So my whole thing is like, when you look at racial and ethnic demographics, if you really want to divide us up and you really want to have a tribalistic view of how the world is, then actually divide us up. Break down who's white. I want to know how many people are from Poland, how many people are from Russia, how many people are from Albania, how many people are from Italy, how many people are from Syria, how many people are from this part of Spain, how many people are from Puerto Rico, how many people are from the Dominican Republic. Don't lump us all into these groups. Don't just put black. Don't just put a Jamaican and an African American in a thing. Don't put a Haitian and then no. Break us all down. Break us all down. And what you're gonna see is that this is a very organic and diverse department, and there is no need for any of this nonsense. They're pitting us all against each other, and they're putting us in these boxes that we don't even exist in. You're a white male. Oh, really? And what privilege did I get as a result of being a white male? Marlon's a black male. Oh, really? And what privilege did he get for being a black male? It's an absolute joke. This whole system is racist and discriminatory, and it makes absolutely no sense. And I'll take it further with the 30 for 30 movement in policing. It's an absolute joke. I'm sorry. To pretend that women police officers are the most effective officers that ever existed on the face of the earth is just not a reality. It's just not. That we've had a video come out recently, 2 female officers in a shooting. I mean, and tactics, again, horrendous. And you're sitting there going, why are those 2 working together? And so like when we look at all this stuff, if you support DEI, you support discrimination, you support illegal discrimination. And now today, you support discriminating against black and brown people. So.
Well said, brother. Well said.
Yeah. Again, it's important to understand that DEI it comes from the top. Okay, it's an inherently elitist policy, and it turns society into one where wealth concentrates at the top, because there's a ceilings to how you can move between socioeconomic classes from the bottom up. You have less opportunity at the bottom. If you want to get to a society that's more equal, we need more opportunities for people on the bottom. Okay, which in order to get that fairly, you need transparency, and you need an equal process. Okay, but I saw this other comment on here. PBE 777. To be fair to Tabitha, okay, I don't think she hates West Indians and actual Africans. Okay, to be fair, okay. And again, let's not pick on Tabitha here, okay? Because again, Tabitha we appreciate the pushback, okay? This platform is about open discussion. Okay. But with that said, I'm going to acknowledge there has always been a tension between the African Americans in America and the ones that come from other countries. And I'm going to tell you that a lot of us who come from other countries, we look at American African Americans as lazy and indulging in victimhood. Okay. And I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Unfortunately, a lot of American culture now has seeped overseas especially into the Caribbean, and they're picking up a lot of those traits and a lot of that victimhood now. Whereas in the old days, there's very much they were very much disconnected, and like especially the Caribbean, they were more involved in the church had a bigger role back then, and not everyone had TVs, so that this culture that has been used to propagandize the American Black community too, it was harder for it to permeate like the Caribbean. Now things are kind of different. If you remember back in the early 90s, in Living Color used to have a skit about Jamaicans who had like 20 jobs, and he used to say like, my son is lazy, he only has 2 jobs, because his son was born in America, but it's a hilarious skit, and it was true. Is absolutely true. Okay. These people come from these other poor countries and they have like 10 jobs and they're hungry to do it. Whereas the people who are born here, you're born with things with less adversity. Okay. So this is how dangerous that victimhood is to communities. Okay. And to Americans in general.
John, Paul, I think you bring up a great point. And what you did was you just showed how people are just lumped together, right? So what John was saying was that everybody's white, right? Somehow John and Eric were both white, but the reality is like white in what sense? I mean, our descendants come from totally different parts of Europe, right? Is it the same white? Isn't there diversity there, right? And my descendants come from Russia and Israel. John's descendant come from Italy. So I might come from Europe and the Middle East, like totally different, right? And same thing with you, Mal. And I think you brought up a great point because we're lumped in. We're just saying anyone that has colored pigment skin, you're in the black group. Hispanics, they're kind of like in purgatory. We could find whites for them, or they could, some are dark, they could be black. And whites, they're in their own box. And then Asians, right? But yet we have diversity amongst these groups. And I'll tell you why you brought up a great point. So John and I both know, both our first commands were working in the 120 precinct. And when you work in the 120 precinct, when you do impact, you work in Park Hill. In Park Hill, they have the largest Liberian community in the country. Liberians that are straight off the boat from Liberia. And what I can tell you is in Stapleton, you had predominantly the American African blacks. And I can tell you, those two groups, generally, not everybody, right? But they hate each other. And I won't even say the word that the Liberians used to call the American African blacks. I can't even say it, but people know what that word is. It starts with N and it's not neighbor. And this is the word that they used to use, blacks amongst blacks. But yet in the NYPD, if someone is Liberian descent or someone Jamaican or someone from Africa, they're both going to be lumped into a group as black. So is this diverse? Absolutely not. We're just lumping people into a group. Yeah, Fox. Hispanics are in purgatory. I really think Hispanics are. Some are light skinned and they can fall in the white group. I know plenty of Hispanics were probably passed over in their career because they appear to be white. They just happen to have a Hispanic last name, or some are dark. So they're in purgatory. Hispanics, they have to find their way. But that's what we do. We're lumping people in. Right? So if there's a black Jew, where does that black Jew go in the box? Do they get to go in the white box or black box? How does this work? The bottom line is it doesn't meet the standards for this whole idea of diversity. And again, I hold the upper echelon of the job responsible. Think about that. They're failing to do the data. So today, if you're the chief of personnel, you should be looking at this data saying, oh shit. Thank you to the Finest Unfiltered because they found the problem. Our Asians and our whites are being underrepresented. We better go start targeting them. We should discriminate against blacks so that we get Asians in. But that's okay. Reverse discrimination is okay. John, I don't know if you know that. Just let you know, reverse discrimination is now okay because that's how you get to the point of diversity. We discriminate against others. Great. I'm glad we solved the problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's only one form. I hate the word reverse discrimination. Discrimination is discrimination. That's it. It's pure and simple. And, if you support DEI, you support discrimination. So, again, we just showed you the numbers. Whites are severely underrepresented in the rank of police officer. Hispanics and blacks are severely overrepresented in the rank of police officer. So based upon that fact alone, it's time to discriminate against blacks and Hispanics in the NYPD based upon, for those that support the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement, right? Everything, right? The NYPD has to look exactly. The percentages have to equal exactly. And if it doesn't do that, then it's discriminatory. So there we are. So my whole thing is this not only has escalated since 2018, it's continuing to escalate. Here's Zohran Mamdani appointing his chief diversity officer. Here's what he had to say.
The people of this city held a belief that City Hall holds as well, that New York should do everything in its power to build a city where racial disparities are identified and eroded, one where every person who calls this city home is treated fairly and equally. To lead that work, I have turned to one of my most trusted advisors, a friend, someone who immediately inspires trust in the hearts of the many civic leaders who have been fortunate enough to work alongside her. Under Afia's leadership, I am proud to announce that a preliminary citywide racial equity plan will be crafted and published within the first 100 days of our administration.
Today, I return to this space to take on a new battle, one that seeks citywide accountability on behalf of all New Yorkers. I am both honored and deeply humbled by the responsibility before us. Reshaping systems that for far too long have erected barriers instead of building on-ramps for opportunity will not be easy. But as the mayor has made clear, this administration is committed to doing big things and to doing them boldly. I look forward to partnering with community leaders and working alongside the teams at the Office of Equity and Racial Justice and CORE to make this commitment real.
We can create a New York that embraces every person who lives here, that works to knock down the walls of prejudice wherever they appear, and that celebrates the diverse fabric of our city.
So, I mean, they have their first mission. All we have to do is look at NYPD promotion process, because there are huge gaps. There are huge racial disparities. We need to correct those barriers. And then you need to look at the hiring practice of the NYPD, because clearly there's huge racial disparity when it comes to hiring male whites. So, so let us know. I'm really looking forward to working with the Mamdani administration and his new chief equity and racial officer, because we've identified these are big problems. The NYPD is the flagship agency of New York City, so this should if we could fix it here, we could fix it anywhere.
Yeah.
There's a solution.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold my breath on Mamdani, because remember, again, he wants that warm embrace of collectivism, and that and he wants no more rugged individualism, So it's more of the same, but maybe a little more professional demeanor. But I would expect maybe this administration will be more more articulate in their explanation of DEI, but or they'll rename it, which they clearly DEI hasn't gone. The obsession with DEI hasn't gone from these elites and these politicians. They're just being more covert about it, and they're just being more measured in how they're bringing it onto us. But it's still there, and I expect no different from Mamdani. And also keep in mind now, it's very curious that, just like Eric Adams, upwards of 80% of his administration, look at the disparity in who are his deputy mayors and who are his commissioners and senior staff. They're predominantly women. And I'm not picking on women, but I mean, a progressive.
Bring that back up. Bring that back up.
I'm not picking on women, but we have to acknowledge that progressivism and all this DEI and all this stuff skews towards empathy and what's the word I'm looking for? Empathy and basically emotions, okay, and not logic, okay, right? And if you really want to get rid of rugged individualism and you want to indoctrinate your agencies with progressivism and all this stuff, okay, you're gonna obviously put people in charge who are more prone to acceptance of that, okay, and women tend to be more on the empathetic side, okay, that's a fact. All right, so just something to think about.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I think that we debunked that this whole DEI movement is exactly that. In order to get to this whole ideology of diversity, you have to discriminate against others. So then now when the tides have turned, if you have to diversify it again, you'll have to discriminate against others. So we've actually created more of a problem. DEI has actually been the gateway for more discrimination. That's what we're doing here. Constant discrimination over and over. It's absolutely ridiculous, but we'll watch it right in front of our faces. How could you argue this? We showed you data after data after data. Remember and recall back to Tanya Meisenholder. We did an entire watch party on Tanya Meisenholder talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, the 30 by 30 movement. And she also referred to white males as knuckle draggers. So don't forget that. I know we have short-term memories. Keep that in mind. This whole DEI movement is right in front of your face, and it's an infection. That's exactly what it is. It's an infection. It's eroding the entire police department. It's eroding any agency. So exactly what you said, Marlon, I agree. This is a problem in the Western Hemisphere, right? In Western cultures. It's not just America. It happens in England. This is going on in Western cultures. Something that you don't see. That's how you know this is manufactured. You don't see this in Africa, in other cultures that are not part of the Western Hemisphere. It doesn't exist. So this is something that is completely manufactured. This is man-made. This is not organic in itself. So with that being said, I just want to say we're 2 hours into it. It's your Friday roundtable. Thank you, everyone. Like, share, and subscribe, please. If you're in the chat, thank you so much for the engagement. There is more show to go. I got to run out of here. I have an appointment, but I want to thank everyone. Finest Unfiltered. I know there's probably a lot more show to go, so my stamina is running short today. Guys, thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Have a good one.
Talk to you later, Eric. Later, brother.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I was trying to find the demographics for how many women there are in New York City, right? Because then here's another gender gap right there, right? Like why was 80 to 100 at one time? It was almost 100% for Eric Adams before half of them realized that they had wanted nothing to do with him and then ran out of there. It was almost 100% at one time. So we know that New York City hasn't compromised 100% of women. So there's a gender gap right there. Why is that? Right? And what has diversity, equity, inclusion done to do there? If that, based upon the data here and in the Zohran Mamdani administration, it's time to discriminate against women also. It's time to discriminate against female deputy mayors. It's time to discriminate against female deputy commissioners. I mean, like, I don't understand. You know, this is what the diversity, equity, inclusion grift is. You know, that's a very interesting chart. And then if you look at, and then if you want to even get any deeper, who remembers the chocolate administration? Have you ever seen this much chocolate? And you want to look at deputy commissioners and deputy mayors and then look at the disparities there. How come that's not going to be addressed? How come that's not being addressed now? You know, so that's the other thing. It's like, so, you know, the people that are claiming that they're against racism are really the most racist people out there. And again, just to end on this whole topic, the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda is just as racist as anything's ever been in history. It's not reverse discrimination. As a matter of fact, if you were following diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, you would constantly be in a form of racism, discrimination, and discrimination against gender, and sexual orientation and religion the entire time in order to keep your numbers perfect. Right? And it's impossible to do. It's not an organic thing. It really defies logic, all of it. Anyone that supports it really has not thought well into it, in my opinion, you know, and that's why I believe most people won't debate it. You know what I mean? Everyone's like, oh, you should have a DEI expert on here. We've tried thousands of times, I actually had someone reach out that they wanted to talk about car stops and how they were racist. And it was, like Harvard educated, runs this big platform. I forget the name of it. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to have her on. And, that fell by the wayside. She looked us up. She's like, yeah, I'm not coming on that show. So, I mean, it is what it is. Anybody that wants to debate this point, I think we nailed it home. The NYPD's promotion process is anything but transparent. What you see, it is actually discriminatory based upon their own data. And then based upon the comments of the former NYPD chief of department, it is clear as day. It's a discriminatory in the promotion process. Currently, the most underrepresented, the most discrimination that's been faced has been faced by male whites and male Asians. It's clear as day. Numbers don't lie.
Yeah, they'll never come on because eventually when their argument breaks down, they revert to demagoguery, and you're going to be called racist, or they're going to allude to you being racist because ultimately they know that their arguments don't, when you apply logic to it, it falls flat, and one more thing about the demographics of the city's workforce. Keep in mind now, right, that the city employees, overall are 59% female and 41% male. Okay. So with that said, you look at Mamdani and Eric Adams' administration, which, like John pointed out, was 1% at one point, 100%. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I don't know. Somebody's ringing my bell. Yeah, but
I can hold it down. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah,
Don't you love live TV, live podcasts?
Yeah. That's it. Keep it going, baby. All right. So someone in the chat keeps bringing up the recruit who requested to not salute the flag. All right. So I was giving very credible information from multiple sources, very close to where that request was made. That's all I'm going to say on that. Very credible sources from people in the know. That's all I'm going to say because I don't want anyone to get in trouble. So, and what that source stated was that what those sources stated, multiple again, stated that there was a Muslim uniformed member of the NYPD who had just recently joined the NYPD in December. So it was a recruit, and the recruit requested not to salute the flag. Now, there are people pushing back and saying that, in fact, that was not a Muslim officer. It was a Jehovah's Witness. No one's disputing that the request was made. To me, I really don't care. I personally don't believe the whole Jehovah's Witness thing because, again, knowing my sources and knowing where they work and knowing what information they're privy to, I don't necessarily believe it. Could they have been wrong? Possibly. I don't think so. So that's the argument. Was it a Muslim? Was it a Jehovah's Witness? Me personally, I could give two shits what it is. I don't care if it's a Catholic. I don't care if it's a Muslim. I don't care if it's Jehovah's Witness. I don't care if it's a Christian. I don't care what it is. I don't care what that recruit is that submitted that request to not salute the flag. It's absolutely disgusting, in my opinion. It has no business. You have no business being in law enforcement. They're saying that they can't salute the flag because saluting the flag is worship to government, which it's anything but. Now, if they asked you to take a knee before the flag and kneel, become subservient, maybe I could get with you. Maybe I could get with you on that. Maybe. But they didn't. They asked you to salute. A salute is a sign of respect. It's a sign of reverence. If you cannot show a sign of reverence or respect to the country that you live in, the country that employs you, the country that you swore an oath before God to protect, how could you swear that oath to the Constitution of the United States? Is that not the same thing? Is that not just basically a little salute to the United States Constitution that protects our God-given freedoms? Now, I support everybody's First Amendment right. I don't think the government should be able to tell you what to say. But if you want to be a law enforcement officer and you want to enforce our laws, I think it's very important that you respect our country. I don't care what your religion is. So again, nobody's denying that the claim was made. Also, that request is not the first of its kind. That request has been requested before numerous times. In the past, that request has been denied, right? And it's been denied, in my opinion, not for the right reasons, but they're saying, well, you don't have to salute the flag, then you have to salute the desk. So, but then is that worship of the desk? You know what I mean? Like in absence of the desk. But the other thing is at a funeral or parade, or at a parade, when the flag passes, you will salute it in uniform, right? When you're a uniform member of the service, right? I'm still so ingrained that I still do it till today. I try to go back with the hand over my heart, but sometimes I pop a salute. And then salute is showing a sign of respect to either a ranking subordinate or peer when in uniform at a parade or a detail, or when a salute is given, you will return with a salute, right? And so, again, people are all harped up on what I put out there. I know a lot of Muslim officers are upset, and personally, I really don't give two shits. 99.9% of everything I say, I put out is completely legit. It comes from great credible sources. And again, it's a topic and a conversation not meant to spark anti-Muslim rhetoric. You never heard it here from any of us during this whole Mandani shit. We never pushed any of that garbage. I didn't push all the mainstream conservative rah-rah social media influencers that were resharing my stuff. I actually put out a statement to debunk them and what they were saying. And again, I'm just going to say, I think that request is disgusting. I think that request should be immediately denied. And I think it's legal to actually deny it because I believe it does cause the NYPD an undue hardship. Unlike the way that they denied accommodation requests for me and Marlon, which were completely illegal. So I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I stand by what I put out, and I don't regret putting it out. I don't change anything I put out. And for those of you that don't like it, there's a lot of other stuff I'm going to put out that you're not going to like. You probably didn't like this conversation today. And I really don't give a fuck because this is America and we're exercising our right to freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, freedom of thought. And I'm going to do so until the day I die. So, that's it. God bless America.
Yeah. I appreciate it, Phil, but I don't need bail money. No, I'm here. Yeah. Yeah. That recruit should have been sent to psych services for that. That's ridiculous. And I missed what John said initially, but I hope somebody has a talk with that recruit, because if you can't do that, then I'm not sure you're ready to be a cop or you really want this. Okay. Because I in fact, I don't even think you really understand what you're getting yourself into, So yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I put this statement out on X, right? Immediately after, because I was like, oh crap. Soon as I put it out, and I tried my best to actually, I did my due diligence actually, because I was like, I don't know, I think this one's gonna go viral. Like this is like, but I understood the concern from the people that told me. They were like, well, if it doesn't get out there, it's going to get processed and it's going to get approved, and it's just going to set a terrible precedent. So I put this out immediately after, right? I said, to be clear, the request not to salute the flag came from one individual, not a group, right? So I don't care if it was a Muslim, if it was Jehovah's Witness, if it was Catholic or Christian, right? A similar request was made years ago and was denied by the NYPD. Too often, a trendy online narrative is driven and the truth gets lost. I grew up in New York City. I served alongside devout Muslim officers who are overwhelmingly good, moral men and women who love this country, many of whom served in the United States military. Recently, a Muslim NYPD officer, Dir al-Islam, gave his life protecting New York City. This is not about religion, race, or background. It's about principle. Any law enforcement officer seeking an exemption from saluting the flag is showing disrespect to the nation they serve. A salute to the flag is not worship of government. It is respect for the Constitution and the God-given freedoms it protects. A salute between officers is the same, a professional courtesy, not worship of a person. Whether the individual involved is Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Catholic, a Jehovah's Witness, or anything else is irrelevant. If someone does not believe in showing respect to the flag, they should not serve as an American law enforcement officer. That mindset reflects a loss of national identity and a distortion of law enforcement's mission. America is made up of people from all over the world, of every race, creed, and color. But in order for this nation to survive, we must share a common vision and identity. The Constitution provides us that vision, and uniting under the flag provides us that shared identity. In 2020, officers across this country disgracefully knelt before BLM protesters, an act that symbolized submission, not service. For years, misguided DEI policies, politicized leadership, and lowered standards have eroded morale, divided officers, and damaged recruitment, and driven experienced cops out. Here is the bottom line. A police officer should have the courage enough to never kneel before an angry mob, but they damn sure should be humble enough to salute the flag of the nation they serve. God bless America. And just another point on that. If saluting the flag is a worship of that flag, then saluting your ranking officer is also worship of that officer if that is your ideology, if that's what you believe personally. And so how come there wasn't a request made to not salute at all?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. You know, we've had other members of the job who have been Jehovah's Witnesses or you know, the myriad of different religions on this job. And you know, I heard a rumor that such a request was submitted years ago and denied for somebody. I forgot what was their background. But again, we've had a myriad of religions and backgrounds on this job for decades, and I think this is more of a product of the times that we live in rather than a reflection of their background and religion. I think people nowadays, things have gotten so bad in Western society that you know it's what are we going to accommodate everything now? It's like we have no standards, you know. We have no standards. We have no you know no unifying cultural aspects, you know. There's no job standards, you know, anymore. And we need to get back to a place where we draw a line against certain things. And again, this is just ridiculous. Yeah.
No, totally ridiculous. What do you think about the other thing that recently came out? I got so many phone calls and texts about it that the NYPD isn't paying out the holiday pay on time. You know, people have redone their checks. Like, what are your thoughts on the NYPD not paying out this holiday pay? A lot of people are using it as political fodder to go against Zohran Mamdani. And I'm like, if you think he's aware in 14 days in office or 50, whatever we're at now, 16 days in office, of any of this, you're out of your mind. This was already set months ago. That's just showing the incompetence of New York City. And really, people were on vacation the last year or so of Eric Adams' administration. The guy we didn't even have a mayor for probably longer than that. Since he's been under indictment, the guy kind of just gave up on being the mayor. And, you know, and I think every city agency suffered as a result. But what do you think that shows? Is that a sign of financial troubles? Is that a sign of incompetence? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
It could be one or the other or both, actually. I'm not sure I can actually center on one of them right now. I could pick one of them right now because I think again I think the latter months of Adams' administration, I think it's obviously Eric Adams no longer cared about being mayor, and I have a feeling he just, you know, let people do whatever they want, you know. And to a certain degree, there was this feeling that it's over for us. Who the hell cares, you know? So, but with that said, I also think there's a lot of problems with the plumbing system of the economy right now and the money system. And there are a lot of things going on behind the background involving the banks that people don't know, like the overnight repo market, which is short-term borrowing from the Feds to the banks. A lot of that has been happening since we cross over into the new year, and that borrowing is to keep the liquidity in the system, because if we have problems in one part of the system, it spreads like a cancer throughout the whole system, and the whole system starts freezing up if money isn't kept, if liquidity isn't kept in the system. So I think there's a lot of underlying problems, and as I said before, and I'm saying it again, a lot of the what's happening in places like Minneapolis are I think to a certain degree there's a lot of distractions there to keep us infighting and to keep the left right divide going, so that we're not looking at what's happening behind the curtain and looking at what's happening with the economy and looking what's happening at the global supply chains. Because again, China is saying we're doing our own thing. They just told NVIDIA, even though Trump okayed NVIDIA to sell some chips into China, they said, nah, we don't need your chips. We're putting a ban on your chips. We're going to make chips over here. And once the supply chain of the world is destroyed, you're going to see a lot of empty shelves on stores. You know, you might see it for a while until new supply chains reconfigure and stuff are made closer to America, and while China goes its own ways. So again, I think there's a lot of issues going on in the economy that aren't being talked about, and that could contribute to the city, this problem. And also, before I go, you know, the city has a budget problem, and it's being talked about more often now and being acknowledged now. And on top of that, in February 30th, not the 30th, towards January 30th, right? Trump says he's going to stop giving federal funds to sanctuary cities. So again, the cities have been plugging their budget gaps with a lot of Fed funds, and a lot of that has dried up already as the COVID funds have evaporated, and now even more so are going to be dried up if Trump is going to be freezing federal funds for sanctuary cities. So there's a lot of problems on the horizon, and a lot of problems that are underneath the system and being covered up right now. So I think that many things could be contributing to this, and I think we need more info to be able to narrow it down as to why. But keep your eyes out, because I think it's going to become more obvious as we head into as we get closer to April, where America is supposed to have a meeting with Trump is supposed to have a meeting with China in April.
Yeah, but again, it's not a good sign. Tamara Cohen says the central payroll guy retired, and the person who does holiday pay was never replaced. No one noticed it until it was too late. I mean, that's kind of like where I'm leaning with the incompetence end of it, but not good things ahead, you know. And it's because we're focused on so much garbage that we don't need to focus on. And I think that's when things start falling through the cracks. Again, show me a problem. Let's identify the root cause of it, and then let's work to fix it. That's not what's being done. We're identifying problems. I don't even think we're identifying problems. We're creating problems and giving no solutions, and we can't even answer the questions of the problems that we created ourselves. It's like we're really losing our way, not only in New York City, but in this country as a whole. And I'm not giving that to just Democrats. The Republicans deserve it just as well. They have no idea what's going on. We have the dumbest, most incompetent people with the least amount of spine and integrity in charge of every agency and every state and every city in America right now. We need to get back to empowering the individual and empowering the working class instead of the cold bitterness of collectivism, which is what we're all being pushed into. And you don't even see it. They're doing it. They're pushing you into it on the right as well. You know, most of you don't even see it. So another thing that came out was EMS was saying that NYPD cops, firemen, EMS workers, when you get injured in the line of duty, you can no longer put left rack or 1PP down as the address when you're being taken to the hospital. I've spoken to numerous EMS supervisors, numerous EMS people, and they said, look, it's not even a big deal. Just it's left rack or it's 1PP and that's it. If they want your address, refuse. That is it. It's a refusal of address, and they'll, and in a separate form on the PCR, they'll put the left rack. Traditionally, it'll be left rack, sometimes 1PP. It depends. I've made that mistake in the past. Yeah, any line of duty forms, it's always left rack, right? I've definitely done that. Got a kickback for putting one police plaza. So that's not a big deal at all. So just don't. The big deal is don't give your address up, because if you do give your address up, you could potentially open your family and as well as yourself up to potential harm with you being doxxed and your information being leaked. Don't give your address out. Doesn't matter what they say. So just business as usual, basically. If they want your home address, don't give it. That's simple. Any thoughts on that order, Marlon?
Yeah, I hope guys are passing the message on down to like rookies, especially because I remember when I was still young on the job, I had to fill out a LOD paperwork, and I started putting my address on it, and luckily the boss caught it and was like, no, you don't do that. So I hope guys are passing this down to the rookies so they know, and don't put your address on it, So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think last thing, and we'll start to wrap it up. Eric Adams meme coin scandal, New York City token. So that's been a lot of fodder. I did a little 15-minute video on it recently. If you haven't watched it, go check that out. That'll be in recordings, I believe, in the YouTube section. I'll put it out for audio consumption as well. But I think that was wild to watch, because I'm like, when I heard him announce that he was getting into the crypto sphere, I was like, who in their right mind would invest in anything with this guy, right? So it opens up at about 60 cents, right? And it's a meme coin, New York City token. It immediately loses 80% of its value in the first hour. It's hovering around 13 cents right now. So a lot of people lost a lot of money right away. And all these crypto investors were calling this a rug pull scam. I think the most famous one, the Haktua girl did something similar, where she had a coin, it started to raise up, and then boom, all the liquidity was pulled out of it. You lose basically your entire investment. And so that's what they're claiming here, crypto investors. These are the allegations that were made, is that, they used Eric Adams and his name, and then he, along with the people, the creators of this coin, pulled their liquidity. Now, they're saying they didn't. They're saying none of them made money, none of them cashed out. They just had to move the liquidity around, which makes absolutely no sense. Why would you take liquidity out of it at the most vital, crucial time of it? So maybe they didn't fully make the transaction yet, but there was definitely liquidity removed from the value of that meme coin, which dropped. Now it sits at 13 cents. And what else was significant about that? The other thing that came out is that he was partnered with Frank Carone. It's rumored. I think an article came out last night where they were saying that Frank Carone is somehow involved in this, and other backers as well. Also, another guy came out of the woodworks after this whole thing dropped and said that he had approached Eric Adams about this idea a while back, and he actually trademarked New York City token. So there's a lot of allegations of corruption around this. The rug pull scam, rug pulls aren't traditionally illegal. However, people have been convicted of wire fraud and securities fraud as a result of instruments like this. In 2024, New York State tried to pass a law where they would make this illegal, where owners of a coin were only able to pull out 8% of the coin's value in the first 5 years. Anything after that would be considered a crime. That legislation failed. So it's definitely not right. It's like if you would go to an attorney and you would tell them something about a case, and then they went and they represented the other guy that you told them about. Like, it's not right. It's not, maybe it's not illegal at this moment in time, but it just shows that it's wrong. And you have no integrity, and it's unethical, basically, and that's what it appeared to me. So I would never invest with this guy. I think he's the biggest 3-card Monty scammer we ever seen. He brought you Zohran Mamdani. You could thank him for that. What are your thoughts about the New York City token and Eric Adams?
Yeah, isn't it curious that Eric Adams is so entwined with like Trump, and Trump is so entwined with crypto, and the crypto bros, It's like I think if not for that, he wouldn't have felt that he can get away with this, So for those of you who don't understand all this stuff, what it is basically he introduced a token, which is like Bitcoin. It's in that it's a cryptocurrency, and at the same time he's hyping it up and trying to get interest in it and trying to get investors into it, right? And while he's hyping it up, he's also dumping his bag. So basically he's selling you his bag, and while it's pumping up, and by him selling his bag, he's removing he's actually dumping basically he's removing liquidity, and he's and that causes the I'm trying to simplify it, but it drops the value of the crypto, and that's what's called a pump and dump. Exactly. Now I also think this happens a lot. It even happens in the regulated markets, actually. It's just they're more slick about it, and they get away with this all the time. How many times have we heard of like Wall Street selling their bags? Meanwhile, they go on CNBC and they tell you, oh, we're doing this and this and this and that, but really I'm selling my bags. People all the time ask me about this token XRP. Okay, I'm sure you've heard of it if you've heard about crypto. XRP. And what I keep telling people is sure, you could have a little bit in it because you don't know where this is all headed to, right? But if you're putting your life savings in all of this stuff, you're out of your mind. Okay, you're out of your mind, because the people behind XRP have been selling their bags for years. Okay, while they've been hyping it up and telling you, okay, you buy into it. Now, I say this happens all the time on Wall Street because during COVID, Bill Ackman came on CNBC and he was crying about the scam, about COVID and what's happening, and telling you that the market's going to crash. The market's it's over for us. And this was the market manipulation. While the market was tanking, he was getting ready to buy on in, swoop in and buy cheap stocks. So market manipulation happens all the time. And unfortunately, a lot of these guys, they get away with it, because they're slick about it. In this case, this is so blatant that I hope that there's enough public pressure on the feds to actually go back after Eric Adams, and find out what exactly where did the money go, and if he actually if he actually profited from it, or whether he is just the front man for it. Because I'm gonna say that he probably profited off of it, but I'm also gonna say Eric Adams is too stupid to actually understand what's actually happening, behind the minutia of cryptocurrency and market dynamics of it. But I hope that there's enough public pressure that they look into it, just for the sake of all those people who lost it. And now those people, even if cryptocurrency is going to be the future and a lot of good things could come out of it, the people who lost money are now going to look at it as like a market full of scammers, and they're going to be more hesitant to be involved in it. So if Trump wants people to adopt his stuff later on, good luck now, because these people who got scammed are going to be thinking whatever you're going to introduce on the market, wherever the market's going, is going to be a scam too. So
Yeah, first of all, I don't think that this guy's going to do anything that doesn't involve money for him. So he originally came out and he said, like, I'm not going to take a salary from this. But it's the same thing as if, like, he had commissioners around him and they started companies, and those companies had city contracts, which is a direct conflict of interest, and you're not allowed to have it. And they're like, oh, well, I'm not taking a salary from it right now. I left. I'm not there right now. I just listed on my resume by accident, like stuff like that. And then you don't take a salary for those years while you're working, but immediately when you cease employment from New York City, you pull your money, and you get everything that was owed to you from that contract. I mean, you profited from it, right? Like that was a favor. That was a give back. That's insane to me. Like that is complete insanity to me. And I think whatever, I didn't pull my liquidity right this second. Okay. Why was liquidity pulled from it? Oh, I didn't make any money right this second. All right. Well, are you going to make money in the future? Are you signing off right now that you're never going to take a profit from this thing? Because what the coin was being sold at, and again, this is why the news media is like, you can't watch them. You can't watch them and be like, oh yeah, what they're telling me is actually accurate. Because they were sitting there and they were telling you, Eric Adams is unleashing this meme coin to fight anti-Semitism. What?
Yeah.
Time out? What? How is he fighting anti-Semitism by you purchasing a meme coin? Oh, he's going to use the profits. Okay, he's going to use the profits to do what? How is he fighting anti-Semitism? And how did he even get elected to this position that he appointed himself to, where he's the crusader of fighting anti-Semitism when he was hanging out with and bodyguarding for Louis Farrakhan? How is he elected to this position when anti-Semitism under his mayoral administration rose more than it ever rose in New York City history? It's like, what the hell are you people talking about? Is this just another fail forward? And it's like, it's honestly insane. I'm like watching Fox, I'm watching CNN, I'm watching all of them just repeat this. Yeah, he's unleashing this coin that's going to fight anti-Semitism. I mean, do I look like an asshole? Is he pitching this to out-of-towners that are just getting off the ferry? Like, what do we look like? A bunch of people that with our cameras, like, yeah, I just drove past the Statue of Liberty. Oh, it's gonna fight anti-Semitism. Oh yeah, let me give you $100,000. Yeah, is New York City pensions gonna be invested into New York City coin? I mean, come on, dude. I would have walked right past them. Like, yeah, all right, bro. I will give you $1. I won't give you $1. Get out of here. Beat it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he deserves everything.
Yeah, that's the danger of being low information. I saw a comment in here. I think it was from you, Samaricon, about what I was talking about. Now, I'm sorry for those of you who watched and like a lot of what I said went over your head, but it's hard to simplify a lot of this stuff. But this is why it's important for you to try and get out your bubble and understand what's happening with the larger world. Because if you don't understand about things like pump and dumps, and you have no knowledge of Eric Adams, corruption, and his history of being a corrupt politician, right? Then you're more likely to fall victim to the people who got scammed out of this crypto coin right now. So this is why it's important for you to get out your bubble and to understand what's, at least dig into it, even if you don't care about it, But also I'm gonna say that this shows us how much anti-Semitism and racism, as we've just talked about, has been weaponized, okay? And how much empathy has been weaponized, because everyone hates anti-Semitism. Find me somebody who doesn't hate anti-Semitism, right? Or you tell somebody about racism, what most people don't like it. I would say the vast majority of people want fairness, okay? And that's why it's easy for people to use that to manipulate your emotional to manipulate your empathy, right? Your human empathy, right? For their own self-interest. And in this case, Eric Adams surely did, because as John said, we don't know how exactly that New York coin was going to help fight anti-Semitism. How are we going to do that with a coin? So got to
Sick.
get out your bubble, you know.
All right, look, before anything before we go to the super chats, I got one more thing. It's just like a little walkthrough. I'm just going to ask everybody to do. You got anything else you want to talk about before we start to wrap up?
No. Just pay attention, you know. The same thing goes for your pension. The reason why I keep talking about it is because I kind of hope that a lot of you retired guys who are going to, you know, call your unions and ask them, hey, this guy said so on the podcast. Is this true? Is this what's going on? Pay attention to it, because the only way that we're going to prevent them from doing all this nonsense and from us falling victim to the same crap that happened in Detroit is if we put pressure on them now. We let them know that they're going to be held accountable now, so that they put the brakes on the BS now. So that's it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean the pension stuff, like I'm not backing off of that. Like if we got to do a private lawsuit to ensure there's an audit done, like it's gonna get done. I'm telling you, there's something really not right in there. I've been doing a lot of research about the Gilded Age and NYPD history, like really like its real foundings and the real start, like really as New York City was formed. So I've been deep diving into that, and I came across a book that was published in 1845. It's called Our Police Protectors. And so I started reading that book. I'm actually listening to that book. I'm not reading it. I'm listening to that book. I'm reading a different book about the Gilded Age, like physically reading. But there's a book I've been listening to, Our Police Protectors. And I literally almost dropped my phone on the floor on the first page of it, because the person that wrote the book wrote it in 1845. And the reason he wrote the book was he was concerned with the New York City Police Pension Fund. And he didn't believe that it was going to last if they were going to allow grifters and scammers to take large pensions that they didn't work for or put money in or earn to pull out large pension payments out of there monthly. So I was like, I almost hit the floor when I started reading it. I was like, wow, really come to fruition. And like, as I've been doing all the research about the early days of the NYPD, while society was much different and it was much more corrupt, and obviously the NYPD was much more corrupt, all of the vices and all of the arguments are almost identical. It's almost like time never really changed. It's like, you know, the buildings changed, the clothing changed, the words that we use changed, the uniforms changed, but all the arguments remain the same. It's wild, you know. So I've been doing that. It'll take me a few months, and I'll unleash that project at some point. But yeah, I think the pension, what happened in our pension, I'm not backing off of that. There's not going to be nobody's backing me off that. You know what I mean? And that is absolutely ridiculous. Like, again, I left $400,000 in there. All of you that have money in there, all of you that rely on a pension, you deserve to ensure that your money's not being stolen out of there in some fucking Ponzi scheme to help political allies. And you should be just as angry as we are about it. You should be demanding an audit the same way we are about it. You shouldn't be, oh, this always happened. This ain't a time for this always happened. Because the same way that healthcare fund got dismantled, and now your healthcare is going to suffer as a result of it, is the same way it'll be for your pension. So it shouldn't just be me and Marlon and Eric talking about it, right? And you watch who changed, and you watch what changed on this network as a result of us starting to talk about that, right? You watch the attacks and who they came from. Pay attention. Pay attention to what's happening. Pay attention to who people work for and what they're saying and what their true intentions of what they do is. You know, so I'm going to ask a favor from everybody right now. So this is the PBA website. Good friend of mine's father, my good friend Richie Sledge, his father Cecil Sledge. His father was killed in the line of duty a long time ago when he was a young boy. His father was working a solo sector car that day. It was because of police officer Sledge that officers no longer work solo sector cars. His partner was out sick. And he was murdered protecting the streets of New York City. His killer is coming up for parole yet again. I just want to show you how easy it is to do this. You go to the PBA website, www.pba.org, I believe. Hold on, let me pull that up. It is pba.org. Yes, it is. And if you see down here, parole justice, click to send letters, right? So you click that, and you could pick whoever you want, right? Or you could do all of them. You could just down the line, and what you're doing is saying, and I'll show you what's going to happen. So I clicked the main box here, and it checked all of these. So for the killers of everybody, Joe Carter, Chris Hoban, Sean McDonald, Raftery, Cecil Sledge, all the way down, right? And then you just go over to continue, and you just put your name, you put your zip code, the letter of the body. They filled it out for you, saying that you're against it, and you submit it. You could put your own. Oh, they actually didn't put the letter in here. I'm just going to write here in the comments. Normally, this is self-populated. Deny cop killers. Sorry, people. I'm trying to do this live. Deny cop killers parole. Deny all. And I'm going to submit. And that's it. It's done. It's going to get mailed to all the parole boards and all the parole offices, and that's it. So if you guys could do that, we greatly appreciate it. Like I said, I did it for all the cops. You could select the cops. Again, my good friend's father, Cecil Sledge, Vietnam veteran. His uncle, actually, you may know him, is also Cecil Sledge from, if any of you guys ever watched Band of Brothers in the Pacific. That whole Pacific is based on Cecil Sledge's life, so real American family, true patriots. So if you guys could do us that favor, we'd appreciate it. www.pba.org. Go to Deny All Cop Killers and just take 2 seconds to fill that out. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah. We put out a little thing. I think it was maybe a year ago about Cecil Sledge, and a little short. Yeah, you guys should watch it. That family is very patriotic family, very, very, very patriotic. And again, like John said, if you watch Band of Brothers, you'll see Cecil's. I believe it was his granduncle, was it? Or
No, I think it was his uncle. Yeah,
his uncle. Yeah, his uncle. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, it was his uncle. Yeah. So so it's Richie's great uncle. It's his father's uncle.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you guys could do that, all right. Let's get to the super chats. We got 15 of them so far. Here we go. So Pat Donahue, he says the super chat donation is strictly voluntary and not meant to influence my chances at a discretionary promotion. How about it might help you on our meme coin that we're going to unleash? You might get early access to it, Pat. So you too could dump your liquidity while we scam all our investors out. And that meme coin is going to be due to fight pension scams. By scamming you.
Yeah, you should put that donation in a bag of chips, Pat, if you want that discretionary promotion. Yeah.
Pat, with your permission, we'll take that $9 and we will invest it. We'll take the $9.99 and we will invest it into New York City token, just so we could keep track of how our investment's doing. Let us know. Finest Unfiltered, baby. So we got the Smith, Mike Smith, Sergeant Armando Berrios is a bum who is the lackey of Chief Holly, jams up the good men and women of Detective Bureau Manhattan South. Stay clear of this disaster. He drank the Kool-Aid and he drank the Holly juice. So I think I know what you're talking about. So apparently a sergeant, I believe in the 5th squad, if I'm not mistaken, she was given an order to do some training, right? For those of you that aren't in the NYPD training is this. Go on your computer, watch this 5-second video and answer these 2 questions, and you're trained, right? So a lot of times squad's busy, you're busy. People the NYPD doesn't traditionally give you time. They want you to take it in your own time and complete these trainings by X date. So apparently this one training didn't get done in time, and then this sergeant texted this other sergeant like, hey, you got to get this training done. Oh, and the training was about suicide awareness that a lot of people are pissed about, by the way, that a lot of people are very upset with, especially the families of the members of the NYPD who committed suicide. So it wasn't really done in great taste, that training video. It upset some people. And so the sergeant had not done that training for the suicide awareness. And she said like something in sum and substance to this other sergeant, like, I'll get it done. This training, I'll get it done. Hopefully that training doesn't make me want to kill myself like the Detective Bureau Manhattan South is doing. You know, like an off-the-cuff statement to another sergeant. And apparently they called psych services on her and had a gun and shield removed like days away from retirement. You know, absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, I don't know if 100% that's true, and I don't really even know that it was Berrios, but I think that's what you're talking about. And if that's what you're talking about, that is effed up, you know, if that's what it is, you know.
Yeah. Real messed up. Days before retirement.
Days before retirement. I mean, come on, man. You know.
Yeah.
That's and again, it's a text. You know what I mean? It's a text between two sergeants. Hey, what are you talking about? You know, if you were really worried about it, you would go a little bit differently than just, you know, getting her gun and shield and reporting it. So absolutely ridiculous. Kelvin Winters, 6368. Love the show. Holiday check didn't come this week, though. Thank you, Eric, for the support and responses. Kelvin, hang in there, brother. Be safe. It's told to you so back when. Tabitha, are you saying Marlon is not black? I don't think she said that, you know. Eric, were you able to find a job with your degree? The Moors enslaving Africa and forcing religion. That's when obviously we were talking about all the racial shit. Hardcore X. It seems to me those advocating for equality actually want superiority. If they want equality based on the stats, it's been far surpassed. And you know what, dude? It's a great point that I didn't bring up earlier. That's exactly what it appears to me. It appears the whole agenda was just to meet the goal of supremacy. And now that that goal has been surpassed, it's like, well, screw equity and inclusion. Now we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing, you know, because we taking over this bitch, right? That's what it seems like to me, because if you really cared about this mission of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you cared about everything being equitable, you would ensure that it was being presented equitable for everybody. But clearly, it's not.
Yeah. We taking over sounds awfully like it's our turn, you know? It's our time, you know? So.
Yeah. It's told to you back when. Why does Eric every episode always say Marlon before you go, but Marlon never leaves? Do you meme before he speaks? I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't even know. I mean, maybe I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
I think I go after Eric, which is I usually go after Eric, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what, like, when Eric jumps in before me. Yeah. I think he's just making a joke about that. But
okay.
Yeah. I did have to go to answer the doorbell though. So
yeah.
Maybe Eric saw the delivery man coming.
Yeah. Super sticker. Fly, Eagles fly, go Birds. Look, nice vet, but we're not Phillies fans here, right, guy? Come on, you know. BAPA is the new NYDO. So
I think is that a Bengali association?
Oh, the Bengali Association is the new Dominican organization.
Organization. I think that's what that is. NYDO. I think
we shall see.
Means a Hispanic society.
We shall see. Like I said, is it their time now? Maybe. Well, we shall see. I mean, Mondani's administration talking a lot about racial equity, a lot about it. So it's pretty wild. Crazy 10-7. Do you know about wires outside of being a teller? He's talking about that lawsuit from the captain who said that he was forced to take someone in the unit, and she was asked about wires by the feds, and she said, "Yeah, I know a lot because I was a teller, a bank teller."
Yeah. Oh, you know, we didn't bring that up, but again, that corresponds with what Chell said. You know, I mean, we didn't think of it.
Yeah.
That you know, that there goes that lawsuit. Yeah. Good
No,
luck with
yeah.
that
I mean,
one.
look, it's a published statement from the third
Yeah.
ranking. I mean, that's that he acknowledged it. You know,
Yeah.
he acknowledged
Facts
it.
right
You
there.
know,
Good luck.
you know. Criteria to be the deputy commissioner ITB 10 years ago. Yeah, I don't know. I would say probably you are part of one of the wealthiest families in America. And you are a large donator to Bill de Blasio and supporter of Democratic policies throughout New York City and New York State. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Criteria to be first dep. I have no idea. I mean, you have to be black or Spanish, right? Like I think that's a criteria, right? Tucker, Caban, Kinsella, right? That doesn't seem equitable to me. I don't know, but I guess it's equitable now, though, right? Because we have a billionaire heiress, white Jewish police commissioner.
Who was before Tucker?
I think it was Grasso.
Grasso. Oh.
Another Democrat. Yeah, Grasso probably supports diversity, equity, inclusion anyway. So yeah. Speaking clear English should be the first check. No, we're going to be doing equity checks. Speaking English is not one of them. Which just brought me up to something else that we were asked to talk about too. Before we run out of here, I'm Tom. Haha. I was wondering where you went, Taha. Anybody else? Hold on. Rob. John, light the damn cigar already. Dude, I have not smoked a cigar since I got COVID in March of 21. I have not smoked a cigar since. I did enjoy smoking cigars. My lungs are destroyed. Sometimes I even drive in my truck with like a huge cigar and I just have it in my mouth and I'm listening to music and it looks like I'm smoking and I'm not. You know? It's like just a relaxing thing to me. It's like a safety blanket, I guess, you know. But yeah, I'm not. I don't smoke anything. I'm not inhaling anything. I don't inhale any longer. I don't smoke cigars, nothing. So I chew them now. I destroy them. MD Samurai. Morning, gents. Late to the show, but always try to support you guys.
Sorry about that.
Hope everyone is well. God bless those who protect us. What'd you get?
No, I accidentally hit that. Yeah, Tabitha just put that up.
When Mullen speaks on Black Americans, he's speaking from a standpoint of a person of color, immigrant descent, not lived experience from Black Americans whose ancestors were enslaved in America. So, look, Tabitha, I think here's the thing, right? We all have different lived experiences. Even just that, Black Americans whose ancestors were enslaved as American, you know, I always go back to it. I've said it on here before, and I'm going to say it again. There is more differences amongst groups than between groups.
True.
There's more differences amongst groups than between groups. Okay? So if you say a male's born in America, right? There's less differences across the board between males brought in America than when you go into and you say male born of Italian descent, second generation, born in New York City. Now you take those group of individuals and you look at those groups of individuals, the patterns of diversity are going to be so stark, it's insane. There's more differences amongst groups than between them. So just because somebody is also in the category you put them in does not mean that you are completely aligned or your differences, your worldview, how you grew up, your education level, your parents, what your parents came from, your background, your standing in society, all of that is going to be drastically different. So again, all of this is bullshit. that is meant to divide and distract us and cause problems and keep us focused on bullshit instead of watching the people that are robbing us.
Yeah, John is absolutely spot on. And that's an incorrect statement, Tabitha, because again, I've been here 30 something years. I've lived for the vast majority of my life in America, as opposed to back in Grenada. Okay, so that's incorrect. It's just that I'm old school, and I see the distinction between the cultures, and I see what's happened to America, and I see what's destroyed, how progressivism and all that, all DEI, before it was actually called DEI, before we had a term for it, right? All of that stuff has permeated and destroyed Black communities in America. And having been from the islands, I you know I, you know the traditions that I was raised in under my parents and my family, it allows me to see that distinction between the American Black culture and culture from back in the islands. Okay, so you can't say that I grew up here. Okay, and what's the other comment somebody said on here? I'm sorry, I forgot the other comment, but yeah, what I'm talking about, Tabitha, is it gets to the heart of progressivism. That is the problem. That is the problem. It's destroyed the American Black community, and now it's trying to destroy the rest of America. And we got to put a line on it and say that this crap, this push to put us into a collectivist society and get rid of individualism, okay, rugged individualism, it hurts all of us, okay, and it's gonna hurt America.
So Black Ninja 9653 says, ask Gordon about his support of Kathy Hochul. Last topic, and I think this is important. So there was a bill that Pat Gordon worked on with Hochul, right? And the bill was going to allow and New York City traffic agents who then went over to the NYPD for that time to get counted up front instead of in the back. Now, we've received a lot of people asking us to advocate for that. I don't know how Eric feels. I didn't speak to him about it. I don't know how Marlon feels. I didn't speak to him about it. I'm just going to tell you how I feel. I honestly think that bill's a bunch of bullshit, and I think it should count on the back end. That is my opinion on it. And I'm going to say, you want to be credited time that as a uniform member of service, when you didn't technically work as an NYPD police officer, you were out there giving tickets. I have no problem with your time counting on the back end. I don't think that it should count up front. That's my personal opinion on it. And the same way we're getting all of these cries about, oh, we want this bill. Same way I didn't hear from one of you. I didn't hear from one of you saying, oh, it was wrong what happened to you guys, and they should restore your time and give you guys back pay. So, and I'm not putting that blanket on everything, but if you want to say where money should go, it should go to people like Marlon Bethel and myself before it should go to you guys getting time on the front end. And again, I think that's being done to upend the recruiting system in the NYPD and to continue to diversify the ranks and further flush out the underrepresented whites in the NYPD. So I don't support that bill at all. If you want NYPD time, you should have to do time in the NYPD, because the new scam will be people are going to be traffic agents for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and then flip over and get large police pensions. I don't support that bill at all. I never did. And that's just my personal opinion. I understand people have grievances about it. They've made life decisions based on thinking that bill was going to get passed. But look, I never supported it. I didn't tell you to make those decisions. We all make decisions in life, and I just don't support it. How do you feel about that bill, Marlon?
Yeah, I don't support it either. And I'm saying that having been a cadet, which was a civilian on the job, and I have I had right a year and a half on the back end, but I guess that's floated away in the ether along with my pension. Yeah. But I don't agree with it because, again, me becoming a cadet was only a means towards me. I wanted to become a cop. Okay, that was the goal. And that should be the goal of if you want to be a cop and you're just, you're a traffic agent now, I don't think we should be, I don't, the 20-year pension is back. So there's less of a need to try and, do fancy math and gymnastics in order to get these guys back their tier 2 pension. I think it's unnecessary, and I see the job again trying to appeal to again, I think this is part of that push to change the face of the department, because there's a lot of minorities who are traffic agents, and what I think we should do is again have better development for them for their career, and push them towards being law enforcement if they want to do that. Okay, not put these things in these artificial measures that are doing gymnastics to try and fit a square peg into a round hole, So I don't agree with it.
Yeah, Samara Cohen saying city time should count up front. There's no reason it shouldn't. So I'm just going to give you the scenario. I have a good friend. He was a cop and actually a detective for a very long time, over a decade. And he transferred over to the FDNY because he couldn't stand the job. He hated the job so much and he didn't want to do it any longer. So he got the opportunity to go to the FDNY after taking the test, and he left with over a decade on the job in the rank of detective. His time's counting on the back end. You're going to tell me that his time as a detective counts on the back end, but a traffic agent's going to count on the front end?
Yeah, good point. Great point.
Absolutely not. Like, if anything, his time counts on the front end, right? Like, if anything, his time counts on the front end, but we're going to say that his time doesn't count on the front end, but a traffic agent does? Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I just don't. And there were other legislation there, and the other thing is, like, Pat, this is to you, Pat Gordon. It didn't like lose me that you directly benefit from that bill as well. Right. And that's, like, where were you again? Where were you for Marlon? Where were you for the rest of us? Silent, right? Where were you with the corruption? Silent. Where are you with the pension scandals? Silent. Where are you for things that you'll directly benefit from? Right out in the open. Here you go. Kathy, I'm here for you. Anything you need. And what'd she do? You got to pass in this, and you got to get passed through the assembly. You got to pass through the Senate. And what'd she do? Whoosh, vetoed it, right? And that goes for you too, Scott, and the rest of you in the thing. Oh, she does good things for us. You guys are giving away your names. You're giving away the only thing that you got is our name right now, because you have no voting block, and you're just letting yourself get used and abused, and you're not getting anything in return. You're getting abused, literally getting abused out there. It's sad to watch, man. It really is. Someone brought up Beauty in the Struggle. I want to know if Attorney Herbert is collecting unemployment. So, longtime friend of Eric Adams, longtime associate of Eric Adams, was coming at me like crazy for a while. Tony Herbert, and then he made the comment about Charlie Kirk that it was karma. So I did him a favor and I shared that. And he got terminated by New York City Mayor Eric Adams as a result of that comment. He just got indicted on federal corruption charges for taking bribes during his time in City Hall, and with those bribes putting pressure for contracts on city agencies, as well as a COVID scam with a fake company, is what the DOJ is alleging. What'd you think about that? I thought it was hysterical to watch him leave court with his Mason jacket. He had his Mason's jacket on, and he was leaving court with no teeth in his mouth.
Yeah. Not a coincidence, I believe. He's telling them, you better help me out here. Otherwise, I'm going to be talking. Okay. But I don't, I said it when Herbert was being vocal about racism, with his back in the summer. I said, like, what exactly does this guy do? Because his position seemed a little like unnecessary to me. But again, I think this speaks of all the hustlers that use racism in Black community, and weaponize empathy. They'll tell you, oh, I'm a community advocate. Racism, 400 years of slavery. I'm helping you out. And then you look at those communities and see how they're in poor shapes and So what have you been doing as community community advocate or whatever BS PC term to call it, to get to emotionally manipulate us into thinking that you're actually helping out the community. You're not. You're not. And in fact, and also Chief Faison, I don't know what comment you were referring to on when you made that statement you did, but guys like that, sure, he has the opportunity in court to defend himself, right? But a Fed indictment with a cooperating witness and who is wired up is more than mere allegation, And the thing is also that hucksters in the Black community don't help us. Okay, it doesn't help the community. Okay, and it doesn't help this country to be competitive in the global landscape. Now, but before we go on, I just, to John's point about the traffic agents, something for you to keep in mind here. The traffic agents, the makeup of them.
Oh, wait a minute.
95%
We gotta
people of
discriminate
color.
right now. 90 to 95% people of color. I'm sending this to the Office of Racial Equity immediately. We need to bring this down. Our whites are severely underrepresented here. Asians are severely underrepresented here. I mean, what are we doing here? Where's diversity, equity, inclusion? Where is this?
Okay. So now you're seeing why they want to do that, why that push is. And furthermore, right, again, right, over 90%, a very high percentage of traffic agents are first generation immigrants. Okay. Very important to keep in mind here with the rapid, and I said before, also look at his head. There's a strong representation from South Asian, okay, specifically Bengali, Bangladeshi, and West African communities. Okay. So again, there's obviously, I've talked about it before, there's a heavy push for South Asian community right now. And that you're seeing what I believe is attempts to, again, rapidly diversify the department via, creative means.
So positively discriminate, so it's time for some positive discrimination on the other one. That's it. Let's get, how are we doing this now? How are we filling the ranks of traffic agents to make it 30% white, to match the criteria in New York City so that they look like the community they serve? How are we going to make it 14% Asian so that they look like the community they serve? How are we doing this? How are we getting Hispanics? There's no Hispanics either. Like, how are we getting it there? How are we getting it? We gotta work. We gotta get people out of traffic enforcement, and we gotta get certain people in. We gotta make it equitable for everybody. And that's the thing. So this is a whole joke. So yeah, I think that's it. I think we're done for today. I don't think we got anything else. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, but obviously we're not going to get into all that, all the craziness that's going on with ICE. They're trying to go after Joe Rogan now because he tried to break down an analysis of both sides. Totally ridiculous. Same stuff. I saw Faison's comment too about like, oh, if you got nothing nice to say, don't say it. Well, no, you don't really have nothing nice to say either. So like, don't give your opinion then. We're out here. We're giving our opinions. We're on a podcast. A lot of people get butthurt over it. It's real simple. Real simple. If you don't like what we're saying, change the channel. Don't listen. Don't follow me on social media. Don't worry about it. If you like to engage in debate and you like to talk, whether we agree or not, let's get engaged in the debate. But to tell us, oh, just turn a blind eye to everything that's going on because it's not nice. Yeah. First it was racist, then it was sexist, now we're Islamophobist. No, now it's not nice. Like, no, we're not going to stop talking about what we want to talk about. This is what we do now. It's a new day in media. It's a new day in the world, right? And this is what we are. Like Hood Mayor said, I think he created the tagline for the podcast. This is the #1 podcast for cops and robbers. So.
Yeah. And again, open platform. The only way we're getting past all these problems in America and have a better America for you and for your kids is to talk about it in the open. And one more thing. Again, keep in mind, FDNY, 67.9% white. So that's why your transfer of time from NYPD to FDNY is on the back end, where the other way would, it's the push is to put it on the front end. It's again, none of this is coincidental. So, but yeah, let me get this off the screen. But yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. We always appreciate the lively discussion, and the chat was certainly on fire, guys. So we appreciate you, chat regulars. You know who you guys are. We appreciate you guys always coming in here and having a lively discussion with us, and we appreciate you spending your Friday with us. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. And if you're out there on patrol, you stay safe and you stay alert, and you pay attention. Okay, don't get complacent.
Yeah, and 100%, guys. Be careful out there. Have a great weekend. Last thing, though, this is the only time diversity, equity, inclusion is allowed, though. Oh, 67% white. Oh, now we gotta get in there. We gotta go after those white firefighters. But when we look at corrections, when we look at traffic agents, when we look at the NYPD now, currently, all of a sudden we're gonna turn a blind eye to it. No, then all of a sudden, diversity, equity, inclusion. Nah, we're not looking for racial equity anymore. We're only gonna look for racial equity going forward on FDNY. Watch the Mandani administration. We're going to be calling out his bullshit too for all that. So that was a great chart, So thanks to everybody tuning in. Thoughts, no thoughts, whatever. Don't like us, who cares, whatever. Thanks for being here today. We appreciate you. And we'll leave you with one last thought from the crypto king in New York City, the boss tweet of crypto himself, Eric Adams.
Why is this so significant? Why is her appointment so significant? The NYPD has a great crime fighting profile, but it has an image problem. When you look at the department, you don't see youthfulness. You don't see the diversity at the top. You don't see the everyday. You could come on.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?